call the meeting of the San Juan Unified School District Board of Education to order. The closed session items on tonight's agenda are as follows. Item 1, conference with legal counsel. Existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1, 2 cases. Magali Kincaid, Benito Juarez Neighborhood Association, Neighborhood Elections Now, Juan Inigas, Carolina Flores, Damaris Canton versus San Juan Unified School District, complaint for violation of the California Voting Rights Act, and in the alternative for violation of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and the California Constitution. Sacramento Superior Court Case number 34-2020-00286475. And Carolina Flores, Neighborhood Elections Now, Petitioners versus San Juan Unified School District, Paula Viescas in her official capacity of board president, respondents, verified petition for writ of mandate pursuant to the First Amendment, the California Constitution, California Public Records Act, and the Ralph M. Brown Act, and complaint for declaratory and injunctive relief. Sacramento Superior Court Case number 34-2021-8000-3644, CUWMGDS. Item number 2, collective bargaining matters, discussion with negotiator Kent Kern, superintendent of schools, regarding CSEA Chapter 127, general operations support, chauffeurs, teamsters, local number 150, transportation, supervisors, teachers, and certificated supervisory units, and regarding non-represented groups, management and confidential units, Government Code Section 54957.6. And finally, 1 personnel matter, Government Code Section 54957, superintendent's evaluation. Mr. Allen, will you please give instructions at this time to those in attendance via Zoom on how they can raise their hand if they have a comment on the closed session agenda items?
Certainly, President Viescas. If you've joined us on the Zoom meeting tonight and would like to offer a comment on an item that is on the closed session agenda, now would be your opportunity to do so. You can do that by clicking that raise hand button found at the bottom of your screen on a mobile device or desktop client, or if you've dialed into the meeting tonight, *9 on your telephone keypad.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Do we have any public commenters at this time?
We do not have anyone with a raised hand at this time, President Viescas.
Okay, seeing no visitor comments for closed session agenda items, we will now move into closed session and we will return to open session at 6:30 p.m.
The board has now moved to closed session. If you've joined us on the meeting tonight and would like to stay on the Zoom platform, you're welcome to do so. Otherwise, we invite you to come back at 6:30 when we will return to open public session. Thank you for joining us tonight. And again, we'll return at 6:30 for open public session. Thank you.
Good evening. I call the meeting of the San Juan Unified School District Board of Education back to order. The board is meeting in the boardroom at the district office, physically distanced and aligned with state and local health guidelines. Public attendance is provided via the Zoom platform as well as a live stream on the district's YouTube channel. The meeting is being audio and video recorded, and the recording may capture sounds and images of those attending this meeting. The recording will be posted on the district's website. We thank you for joining us and ask for your patience as we use this format in an effort to maximize access and participation during this time of physical distancing and other restrictions. At this moment, please stand for the virtual presentation of the colors by the Casa Roble Fundamental High School Air Force Junior ROTC.
Color guard, attention, hut, port, arms, forward, march. Color guard, halt, ready, haste. Ready. Haste. Present. Arms. Ladies and gentlemen, may you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Order. Arms. Ready. Haste. Forward. March.
Good evening. I'm Paula Viescas, Board President, and to my right is Dr. Michael McKibben, Board Vice President. To his right is Ms. Pam Costa, Board Member, and to my left is Ms. Zima Creason, Board Clerk. To her left is Mr. Saul Hernandez, Board Member, and Superintendent Kent Kern and other district staff are also in attendance. Before we begin, I'd like to review the two methods that are available at this time to submit public comment for tonight's meeting. The first option is to submit a public comment online using the comment form located on the district website at www.sanjuan.edu/board-meeting. If you wish to submit a public comment on more than one agenda item, please submit a separate form for each item on which you are commenting. Comments received by 6 p.m. today have already been shared with all board members. Comments received after 6 p.m. tonight, including those submitted during the meeting, may be read during the meeting depending on time. Comments may only be submitted on an agenda item up until the time that the agenda item has been discussed. The second option is on the Zoom platform, where you may use the raise your hand feature. When you are called on, you may share a comment via audio during the meeting. Please note that all public comments are subject to a 2-minute limit or approximately 1,500 characters. With that, we are now at item D, approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes for May 25th? It's been moved by Dr. McKibben. Is there a second? It's been seconded by Ms. Creason. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. That was unanimous. We are now at items E1 through E4. And I think we've got almost a full house. We'll start with E1 and our staff reports. And I'll invite Ms. Kristen Schnapp to join us at this time for a staff report.
Good evening, President Viasquez, members of the board, Mr. Kern and Ms. Cunningham. Today after school ended, Rio Americano students held a rally focused on lifting student voice in response to the incident in which a teacher shared a Nazi flag in his classroom. Approximately 12 to 15 students gathered with administration, district representatives from FACE, equity and communications teams, as well as community members. Students shared their lived experiences and encouraged the Rio Americano staff to listen to marginalized students, validate their concerns, and take action. Members from the community also shared concerns, offered support to the students and the staff, and encouraged the staff to support student voice moving forward. Last week, Mr. Ginter and Mr. Kelly, Rio Americano's incoming new principal, also held listening sessions and invited all students to attend. And from these listening sessions, students shared their desire to create equity teams that would consist mainly of students with a rate of 75% students to adults. Mr. Ginter will be sending out an email to all staff and students as well, inviting them to participate in the equity teams. And once the teams that have been established, students, staff, and parents will begin to plan this summer to support lifting student voice and creating specific actions to help create a more inclusive campus for the Rio Americano students.
Thank you, Ms. Schnapp. At this time, we are now at item E2, board-appointed district committees. I believe we have Mr. Tom Nelson joining us with the Lcap PAC. Mr. Nelson, please begin when you are ready. Mr. Nelson, it doesn't
All
indicate.
right, thank you.
I can't hear you. Oh, there we go.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, President Fiasquez, board members, Superintendent Kern, Ms. Cunningham. My name is Tom Nelson. I am the chairperson of your Lcap Parent Advisory Committee. Our committee's last meeting was on Thursday, June 3rd. Our original committee of 20 members has had 3 members resign. Therefore, our usual quorum of 11 members became 9. We did have 9 members attend and were able to take action on motions. However, one action our board advisory committee on Lcap was not able to take is advising our school board on the Lcap. At our meeting last Thursday, the 180-page Lcap plan had not been presented to our parent advisory committee for review and comment. However, it was publicly released the following day on Friday. At our May meeting the previous month, a 10-page draft outline was shared with our committee for giving input. A 10-page draft outline does not contain the same information and level of detail as the 180-page Lcap. While our bylaws call for our committee to advise the school board on Lcap, in practice, our committee has simply been another listening circle for staff. I will now report on our June 3rd meeting discussions. Thank you, Dr. McKibben. Dr. McKibben informed us on the process of establishing trustee area elections. This is one of the most important decisions which will be made in our district. Dr. McKibben encouraged us to share this information as widely as possible to engage the public in deciding trustee area maps and whether the future school boards will consist of 5 members or 7 members. Dr. McKibben reported that timelines required for these decisions are short, and decisions on trustee area maps are to be completed sometime in July. Concerning other committee business, the bylaws for the 3 board-appointed advisory committees of Curriculum and Standards, Facilities, and Lcap call for elections of committee leadership. That is elections of a chairperson and an assistant chairperson, and in the case of our Lcap committee, a student chairperson. That is to occur at the last meeting of the academic year. Our committee had a discussion on improving stability of our committee, and a motion was made by Damaris Canton, who has served on the committee for 6 years, I might add, to postpone electing committee membership until our August meeting. Reasons for postponement included our committee currently has several open seats after resignations by some members. Also, the many new members would be included in deciding our own committee leadership. This would increase our members' sense of committee ownership. New members added by August may include people who would be good candidates for leadership positions of chair and assistant chair. Also, with only one of the 4 current student members attending our last meeting, electing a student chairperson would be postponed anyway. We did not have a quorum of student members attending to elect a student chairperson. And also while our current student chairperson was not present, Kenan had communicated that his recommendation would be to postpone elections until the next school year when there are students that fill the open positions. The motion to postpone was seconded by our assistant chairperson, Heather Gonzalez, and the vote was unanimous of all 9 members agreeing to postpone elections until August. Our committee hopes processes of recruitment, selection, training, and support will be improved to create greater committee stability. We want future members who will be prepared and qualified for the expectations of being on an advisory committee to our school board. That preparation should include training on Lcap and the complex nature for deciding on recommendations to our school board. Other items of discussion included the reporting of family engagement. The Lcap is required by the California Department of Education to address every one of 8 state priorities. Those 8 state priorities are reported on the California Schools dashboard. family engagement is one of the 8 state priorities. Family engagement is state priority number 3. Our district has almost 40,000 families. Only 11 parents out of 40,000 families are being used for the parent engagement rating. Those 11 parents represent 13 schools out of our district of over 60 schools. That means over 75% of our schools did not get any responses from parents on family engagement. 75% of those schools did not get a single parent response, and those schools are being left out. Schools without parent responses should be counted in reporting parent engagement in the parent engagement rating. Basic statistics tells us that valid information is based upon sample size. A sample size of 60 or 70 gives more validity to results than a sample of only 11. Our committee also questions how the 11 parents were selected. Selection methods influence the validity of the result. Random sampling removes influences of bias. Biased information occurs with self-selection. If our district is trying to remove influences of bias, why is our district using self-selection for responses to family engagement? These continued behaviors by staff that promote biased practices have damaged trust among our parents. Committee members stated that our district has fostered a culture of bias and racism. Other committee comments stated that our meetings are very performative and perfunctory. They're very transactional. There is a lack of being accountable. Members stated that our committee has no teeth. Recommendations made in April to this school board are apparently being ignored. In April, our advisory committee recommended to the school board that parents from every school site be represented in the reporting of State Priority 3 on family engagement. That recommendation to engage parents has been ignored by the school board. It has been ignored without comment or feedback to our committee. Our committee members are saying there is a clear disjointedness across the district. Another item which our student chair, Kennan, recommended to this school board on April 27th was to lower the amount of students per counselor by a significant percentage. From our Lcap committee meeting last Thursday, increasing counselors to respond to that student request to address mental health is not in the Lcap for your approval. Our school board says that it values voice. If our Lcap committee were to hear from the school board, it would improve trust if those words are demonstrated by responding to our committee's recommendation that we make to the school board. Thank you. I invite questions from the board.
Thank you for your report. Do any of my colleagues have questions at this time? We also have a related agenda item. So, and then I actually realized, and just for folks at home, no one has questions at this particular time, but I didn't ask if anybody had questions of Ms. Schnepp for E1. So are there any questions for Ms. Schnepp on her report? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Nelson, for the report. And we are now at item E3, employee organizations. I believe we have Karen Smith with CSEA joining us. Ms. Smith, please begin when you're ready.
Good evening, President Velasquez, board members, Superintendent Kern, and Ms. Cunningham. CSEA is proud to announce that it gave out 4 $500 scholarships to San Juan students this year. And while classified staff continue to give back to our students at numerous events, San Juan Unified is still not participating in the summer assistance program that could not only help our classified staff, it could help their students who live in San Juan boundaries. Classified staff are not being given a paid living wage that a person or a family can live on by the district. We currently have 150 vacant instructional assistants vacancies alone. We cannot fill because the low salaries in neighboring districts are paying classified staff a much higher wage. San Juan management, as well as teacher salaries, have gone up in the past 5 years, while essential classified workers' salaries have not. While a one-time bonus is nice, it does not help with the rising cost of living. CSEA is respectfully asking that the district fix the minimum wage compaction issues for the classified salary schedule that has not been resolved for the past 4 years. There is a salary adjustment, or we are requesting that there is no salary adjustments or one-time off-schedule payments to any district groups until this issue is addressed. Thank you and have a nice evening.
Also joining us for item E3 is Mr. Bill Simmons. Mr. Simmons, please begin when you're ready.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Curran. I'm Bill Simmons, president of the San Juan Teachers Association. Today, our teachers, counselors, nurses, teacher librarians, speech language pathologists, and social workers completed the 2020-21 school year with students. This has been a challenging year for everyone, but with the support of classified staff, administrators, and parents, the educational practitioners of San Juan faced the unprecedented challenges of this global pandemic and adapted to meet both the ever-changing health and safety guidelines and the educational needs of their students from infant toddler to adult ed. Summer is a time for recreation and recreating. Many San Juan SJTA practitioners are already preparing for summer learning or teaching and for the return in the fall to a more normal school year. Next school year, however, will bring all of us new challenges. During this time of reflection, practitioners will be adapting their lessons and practices with the focus on the academic, social, and emotional learning of their students to continue to prepare them for college, career, and citizenship. San Juan Teachers Association members want to thank you and our community for keeping the focus on the safety and health of our students and staff this year, and for taking the time to listen, even when we did not always agree. We made many changes and adaptations throughout this year, but we did them together. As Mr. Curran stated earlier today, and I quote, "None of it would have been possible without our ability to collaborate and adapt, no matter what came our way." SJTA looks forward to continuing to collaborate and adapt as we face the future together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons, for joining us. Do any of my colleagues have questions for either Ms. Smith or Mr. Simmons at this time? Ms. Costa?
Mr. Simmons, I don't have a question. I just would like to wish you well over all the years that we've worked together. I think it's a real loss that you're retiring, but I am so happy for you personally and want to wish you the very best. So thank you very much.
Thank you. But you have one more meeting in June and I'm not retired until the end of June. So
All right, that's
Don't-
okay. Then
don't push me out quite so quickly.
I'll wish you well any day.
Thank you both for joining us. And I know technicalities aside, it's my understanding we have two of our labor leaders, both Ms. Smith and Mr. Simmons, retiring. So I will go ahead and thank you now, and also note that we will see you both again before the end of, while we're celebrating the end of the school year, it is not the end of our business quite yet for the year. So thank you both for the presentations and for your remarks. Before I move on, I just want to make sure I'm not missing anybody on the screen. Mr. Allen, do we have any other reports from staff, board-appointed district committees, employee organizations, or other district organizations?
We do not, President Villescaz.
Okay, thank you for confirming. With that, we are now at item E5, and there are no closed session actions to report. So we will move to item F, our visitor comments. Mr. Allen, will you please give instructions to those in attendance via Zoom on how they can raise their hand if they have a comment at this time?
Certainly, President Villescaz. This item is an opportunity for those individuals attending the meeting to offer comment on topics that are not on tonight's agenda. If your comment is related to an item on tonight's agenda, we would ask that you hold your comment until that item is called, and public comment will be offered at that time. If you'd like to offer a comment on a topic that is not on tonight's agenda and have joined us on the Zoom environment, now would be the time to raise your hand. To do so, click the raise hand button found at the bottom of your screen on a mobile device or desktop Zoom client, or press *9 if you've dialed in to the meeting tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Allen, and I'd like to remind the public that comments are limited to 2 minutes, and the clock on the screen will count down the time. Under the Ralph M. Brown Act, the board is not allowed to comment on items that are not on the agenda, so we're not ignoring your comments. We just can't respond to any individual comments. The superintendent can refer items to staff who can follow up with you. Mr. Allen, do we have any general visitor comments at this time?
We do have several hands raised at this time, President Villescaz.
Okay, I appreciate your assistance in navigating them as I can't see all of the hands from my platform.
Absolutely. Our first comment then will be coming from Mr. Ben Avey. Mr. Avey, when you are ready, sir.
Thank you, President Villescaz. I wanted to start off by saying thank you to Tom Nelson for the hundreds, if not thousands of hours that he has committed to the Lcap and the plan. I do hope the board will consider his comments and discuss the process by which they get parent feedback from the Lcap committee in the future, because it sounds like he has some concerns related to that. I also wanted to actually share the major comment is my disappointment to learn that the president of the San Juan Teachers Association, Mr. Simmons, who has led the effort to prohibit in-person learning this year, will hold an in-person retirement party on June 10th in violation of county public health orders. I was further concerned to see that the invitation RSVPs included names like Mike McKibben, Kent, and other senior district officials. This is very concerning considering the district's extreme cautious approach to in-person learning and even promotion ceremonies over the past few weeks. As a reminder, Sacramento County's June 1st public health order, which doesn't expire until June 15th, refers to CDPH for school-related activities. Under staff-to-staff interactions, like a retirement party, it says ensuring staff maintain physical distancing of 6 feet from each other is critical to reducing transmission between adults. Minimize the use of and congregation of adults in staff rooms, break areas, and other settings. This party is clearly violating that rule. And frankly, it feels a bit hypocritical when we have done so much to prevent student gatherings indoors that now we are doing that for the president of the Teachers Association. I appreciate his retirement as a momentous occasion, but so are school promotions and other celebrations that we have had to skip out of an abundance of caution and safety this year. Thank you.
And thank you for your comment, Mr. Avey. Our next comment will come from Amy Chafin. When you're ready.
Hi, good evening, board members. This is Amy Kasuni. I have 2 points for you tonight. First, this board's Lcap Parent Advisory Committee spent the entire year reviewing 4 Lcap goals, providing commentary and review regarding the same, a function required by law. Simply put, if this board moves forward with the current Lcap draft, it will violate the law, specifically California Education Code 52062A1. This is due to the fact that the draft reviewed and commented on by your Lcap Parent Committee was substantially different than the current draft before you tonight. Further, hearing that an Lcap student member requested that the student counselor ratio of 400-to-1 be reduced is concerning because previous Lcap committees advocated and were told by the district that that ratio would be reduced. It's unfortunate the district misled this board's previous Lcap committee in that same ratio reduction. In In short, LCAP committee members would have been better off spending time with their children rather than discussing the LCAP draft, only to have the entire draft they commented on substantially change the very next day. Moving on to a second legal situation, the California Voting Rights Act became law 20 years ago. When noncompliance with the law was brought to the attention of this district to stay out of court, the district entered a statutory written commitment with Attorney Rafferty to comply with the act. The very next day, the district circulated drafts of a letter demanding that the governor suspend access to the courts. The district's letter misled the governor regarding the registrar. In other words, this district utilized questionable measures to skirt compliance with voting rights law. Finally, it's time for improved electoral representation. It's time San Juan moves to a 7-member board to ensure representation for all students. There's widespread community support for this.
Ms. Kasuni, I'm going to have to ask you to, conclude your comments. Appreciate that. Our next comment will come from Mr. Juan Inez. Juan, when you're ready, sir.
I think I'm unmuted, correct?
You are.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Allen. I know you're going to talk about the Cvra later on, but last time we had this agendized, it was on very late, and then it was arbitrarily decided to pull the item. So I wanted to get my comments in early enough for both you and the public to hear what I had to say. I hope that decisions made by you today will once and for all start the process of implementing neighborhood or by district elections for school board. Yet again, I stress the need for the creation of 7 fairly drawn districts. San Juan has the 10th largest total student enrollment in the state. Of the remaining largest 9 school districts, 6 have 7 electoral districts, only 3 have 5 electoral districts. Historically, Arden Arcade, west of Watt Avenue, has been underrepresented on the board. This is in fact one of the most diverse and lowest income areas in California. Yet the current 5-district system has failed to stem low academic performance in this and other parts of the district. I want to be clear, students are not to be blamed for low performance, adults are. I believe that the current San Juan Board recall petition process calls for or leans towards the creation of 7 districts. I know for a fact its supporters agree with us that 7 districts are needed. The evidence is mounting. I ask that you please do the right thing and create 7 districts. Thank you.
And thank you for your comment. Our next comment will come from Joaquin Kincaid, when you are ready.
Oh my, sorry, that's Miss, this is Magali Kincaid, I'm sorry. But good evening, my name is Magali Kincaid, and I'm a parent of 2 children attending schools in the San Juan Unified School District. And today I attended a student-led rally at Rio Americana High School. The students shared many painful stories of racism experienced at the school over many years and the lack of action and follow-through by the administration. The students shared their frustration at the school's reactive nature instead of being proactive and leading boldly. As disappointing as this lack of equity and leadership is to hear, it is not new or confined to just Rio. This is district culture, which is one reason you continue to be in the news, face lawsuits and recall efforts. Representation matters, which is why having local representatives and increasing the board from 5 to 7 is important. I also urge you to put a student on the school board. You already hold the power to do so under Education Code 35012. I also urge you to address the concerns and requests of the Lcap Parent Committee, as discussed so eloquently by Tom Nelson. Finally, thank you for agendizing the Cvra discussion, and I urge you to put the power in the hands of the community and not your self-interests. Thank you.
And thank you for your comment. Our next comment will come from Maria, and I apologize, Maria. I'm pretty sure I will not get your last name right. Grijalva.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak, and excuse the background sound if you if you get any. My name is Maria Grijalva. I am the founder and director of the Latino Information and Resource Center, a social justice nonprofit in Sacramento. Most recently, my organization helped many employees escape human trafficking conditions that were being exploited as forced labor in Sacramento. And a store owner who was actually is a public official wanted to exploit their human resources, their people of color to a criminal extent. But I helped stop this. And in 2018, my nonprofit was the plaintiff that brought district elections to West Sacramento's Washington Unified District. And the district also passed a resolution, such as you did, agreeing to comply with the Cvra. But it didn't drag its feet like you did, nor did they intertwine the Lcap to complicate matters. Just like the store owner who wanted to exploit his human resources, I see you exploiting time by allowing the pandemic to have gotten in the way instead of holding, oops, it's only 36, wow. Anyway, I'd like to call your culture what it is, and that is racism. By allowing this to extend the way it has, it's really been an exploitation of volunteers, and it's been an exploitation of at-large elections by allowing them to remain as long as they have. And so thank you for this opportunity to speak, and I hope you do what's right and stop allowing these at-large elections to remain a moment longer. Thank you.
And thank you for your comment. Our next comment will come from Mr. Scott Rafferty. Mr. Rafferty, when you're ready, sir. Mr. Rafferty, you are still on mute. There you go.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes. Later this evening, there is on your agenda an update on the Cvra. There's no staff report. There's nothing really for the public to react to and have a meaningful discussion. This is the latest in a series of activities to really suppress meaningful public input on this issue, where you seem to be completely outnumbered by every constituency that the district is supposed to serve. We learned last year that the incumbent trustees will do just about anything, even misleading the governor in the middle of a pandemic, even accusing the registrar of Sacramento County of refusing to implement a trustee area map. Absolutely anything to retain themselves in power. That strategy will not work. It violates the law. It violates state law. It violates federal law. And there seems to be an illusion on the part of the trustees that if you just exploit the delays of the courts, that you can come back after the pandemic and somehow draw your own lines and handcuff the representation in this district for yet another decade. It's not going to work. Finally, why don't you agendize a discussion of the second lawsuit, Flores v. San Juan Unified School District, which is about your lack of transparency and the blatant violation by President Velasquez and other trustees of the clearest, newest provision in the Brown Act that prevents them from going on social media and having discussions about what the board is going to do. So please be more transparent and start complying with the law. Thank you.
Our next comment will come from Melinda Avey. When you're ready.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for allowing me the chance to comment. I can't let this year go by without expressing my gratitude and admiration for the parents in this district. I've seen them rise to the occasion to overcome difficulties that they never, ever imagined that they would have to do. Overnight, the school classroom became their kitchen table, and they had to adapt to Zoom and to homework and to navigating that whole system. They often had to hold down their own jobs at home. They had financial difficulties caused by COVID. They've been extraordinary. I have 4 children. I could not have done what they did. My respect is 100%. So thank you very much. I see it I pick up my grandkids and I see these kids coming out of school and they're happy and they're excited to be in school. So I want to thank the parents for every single thing that they've done this year. Thank you.
And thank you for your comment. Our next comment will come from Kula Koenig. Kula, when you're ready.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Kula Koenig, and I'm the founder of the Social Justice Political for Sacramento County. We're an organization that is trying to ensure that all political decisions in Sacramento County are made through a social justice lens. And, my comment, I come as someone who facilitates a community group regarding all the happenings in the Arden Arcade area. And, there's been a lot of discussions amongst community members in this group about the need for by-district elections and just how important that is. And so, my comments this evening are just to urge the board to, not wait any longer and to really implement the by-district elections to move from, 5 to 7 seats, because as been said before, representation does matter. And there's so many barriers that already come into play of being able to run for elected office, that we shouldn't add these other barriers as to where, it's basically I would call it a free for all, right? And so this is a step towards a more equitable representation, which is so very important for the Arden Arcade and the San Juan community. And so with that, I will end my comments and just ask again for you to, without any further delay, implement the by-district election. Thank you.
And thank you for your comment. And President Villescaz, that was our final public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you thank you to all those that have joined us, and thank you, Mr. Allen, for your assistance when navigating public comment. At this time, we are at item G, our consent calendar. Do we have any public comments for items that are on the consent calendar at this time, Mr. Allen?
We've not had any comments submitted for consent calendar items, but if you have joined us on Zoom and would like to offer a comment on those consent calendar items, clicking that raise hand button would be the appropriate time now. And seeing one raised hand, President Villescaz.
Okay. Please go ahead and facilitate public comment on our consent calendar. When ready, I'd like to remind folks that this is our consent calendar. We've got a number of other business items as well, but we'll go ahead on our public comment.
And our first comment is Carolina Flores. Ms. Flores, you're still on mute. Do you have a comment regarding the consent calendar items?
No, I said that I had raised my hand and signed up in order to speak regarding the last issue, and I was not called, totally ignored. So I want to know if I can give my comments now.
Your hand was not raised at the end when we closed public comment, Ms. Flores. Let me go to our next speaker and I will consult with the board to see what we might be able to do for you.
All right.
Thank you. Our next comment is Amy Chafin again.
I'm sorry, I have no comment. Apologies.
Thank you, Ms. Kasuni. And then Ms. Flores, I know we are in receipt of your written comment for our Cvra item as well. Just as a reminder, that is our third business item for the evening. We will also call for public comment at that time. However, if at this time you would still like to offer comment on the consent calendar, please proceed. Ms. Flores, are you there?
Ms. Flores, you're still on mute.
My apologies. I have no comments on the consent calendar.
Do you have a comment on an item that's not on tonight's agenda?
Yes.
You're welcome to give that. You're welcome to give that comment now, Ms. Flores.
Oh, thank you very much. Como mujer latina y abuela activista abogando por parte de los niños hispanoparlantes, doy testimonio que por 20, 30 años la Mesa Ejecutiva de San Juan continuamente falla en proveer la educación que merece nuestra comunidad latina. Los fondos han sido apartados a favor de vecindades afluentes y los demás se quedan sin nada. Nuestro grupo comunitario ha presentado una demanda legal por este distrito por la falta de representación equitativa y todas las vecindades. Pedimos que las elecciones escolares sean por un distrito en vez de todos en general. Cada vecindad podrá elegir su propio representante. La Corte ha declarado que las elecciones actuales que tienen ahorita son racistas y ilegales. Además, estamos circulando una petición pidiendo su apoyo en expandir la mesa directiva de 5 a 7 miembros y necesitamos firmas de votantes registrados en la área del Distrito Escolar de San Juan. Los 2 representantes nuevos adicionales representarán a comunidades de West Arcade y Citrus Heights. De esta manera terminamos con la injusticia y corrupción históricamente de este distrito de San Juan. Por favor, firmen nuestra petición y ayúdenos a difundarla. La distribución es muy importante. Muchas gracias por su tiempo. Es todo.
Thank you, Ms. Flores. At this time, I don't see any further comment on our consent calendar.
Ms. Villescaz, we have had another hand go up.
Okay.
Amber B. Do you have a comment on the consent calendar?
No, I apologize. I thought that I heard there would be time on the agenda to address the student group and incident at Rio Americano, but as I was scrolling the agenda, I did not see that coming up anywhere else. And so my comment was along those lines.
Thank you, Amber B. Just as a reminder, so our next section for general visitor comments is not an agendized item, is item L, and that would be an appropriate time for your comment, and we look forward to hearing it.
Thank you.
Mr. Allen, are there any other raised hands for our consent calendar at this time?
There are not, President Villescaz.
Do any board members wish to remove any items from the consent calendar at this time? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve items G1 through G10? It's been moved by Ms. Costa and seconded by Mr. Hernandez. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye, that was unanimous. So with that, we are now at our business items. We are at I1, our local control and accountability plan. Ms. Schnapp, please begin when you are ready.
Thank you. This evening, San Juan will hold a public hearing regarding the revisions to the San Juan 21-24 Lcap. The Lcap includes 8 state priorities, including implementation of Common Core state standards, student achievement, student engagement, school climate, parent involvement, core access, basic services, and other student outcomes. Tonight, our team will share the district's journey from strategic planning to the 21-24 Lcap and our ongoing commitment to gathering stakeholder input in the creation of the plan. You will see this stakeholder input reflected in tonight's presentation. This year's Lcap includes the annual update for 2019-20, which was suspended last year, as well as this year's learning continuity and attendance plan update. Joining me tonight are John Tornatore, Director of Continuous Improvement in Lcap, Melissa Bassinelli, Deputy Superintendent, Susan Green, Director of Assessment and Evaluation, and Christina Sparks, coordinator of special programs and grants, as well as a student from who works with Christina, Grace CP, and she is a student at Meraki. I'm now going to invite Mr. Tornatore to discuss the LCAP plan.
Good evening, President Villescaz, members of the board, Superintendent Kern, and Ms. Cunningham. This evening, I'm excited to present the San Juan Unified School District's Local Control and Accountability Plan, known as the LCAP, for board consideration. Before I get started, I want to take a moment and acknowledge all the students, staff, departments, parent advisory committee members, and families who have been a part of creating our plan. I also want to give a special thank you to our student leadership groups, LCAP PAC, focus area teams, volunteer facilitators, assessment, evaluation, and planning department, and fiscal services for their partnership and leadership. As you can see, this truly has been a collaborative effort. My hope this evening is that in reviewing this plan, you and the larger community feel like the voice and input of stakeholders is reflected in our plan, and that the LCAP is clear, accessible, and understandable. This evening, I'm going to share our continuous improvement journey and story with you by providing an overview of the LCAP, a timeline of key events that have occurred in the process, and finally, our LCAP plan and budget. The Local Control and Accountability Plan is a 3-year plan that describes the goals, actions, services, and expenditures to support positive student outcomes that emphasizes English learner, foster youth, students experiencing homelessness, and low-income student groups, as well as meaningful stakeholder engagement. The LCAP is also centered around 2 core principles: equity and continuous improvement. Our approach for leading this work begins with our equity strategy that focuses on reflection, action, and impact, specifically seeking to understand and learn about what our students need, bringing that understanding into action with coherence and in partnership with stakeholders, and measuring and holding ourselves responsible for the impact of our work. The second core principle of the LCAP, as I mentioned, is continuous improvement. One way that we are applying our equity strategy is by using a model for continuous improvement where opportunities for reflection, action, and measuring impact are embedded throughout the process. This process is aligned to the LCAP and consists of answering 3 fundamental improvement questions in partnership with stakeholders, which are: what are we trying to accomplish? How will we know that a change is an improvement? What change can we make that will result in improvement? This process also includes conducting iterative plan, do, study, act cycles of inquiry to test actions. In addition to the LCAP, this model is aligned to and at the center of the statewide accountability system, which includes the School Plan for Student Achievement, California School Dashboard, Differentiated Assistance, and System of Support. I now would like to take some time to share the process we have taken with the LCAP and recognize that the development of the 21-24 LCAP process actually began 2 years ago. At the beginning of the 2019-2020 school year, San Juan launched an expansive listening and learning process as part of the development of a new district strategic framework, a new 3-year LCAP that included the following key activities: convening a strategic planning task force, holding regional school community forums, and launching the Cultural Brokers Network. Following the completion of the strategic framework development process, staff LCAP teams were formed around the new focus areas. Teams revised and aligned existing LCAP actions to the new LCAP goals, state and local data, stakeholder input, and considerations provided by the LCAP PAC. Shortly after this process began, the closure of all schools was announced as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 resulted in LCAP work being placed on hold until further guidance was received by the California Department of Education. In June 2020, Senate Bill 98 was approved and suspended the 2020-21 LCAP and instead required completion and adoption of the Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan for the 2020-21 school year. As part of our continuous improvement series with the board, we shared statewide summative data and local data. This included California School Dashboard, attendance, grade, text level, survey, and stakeholder input data. The disruption of COVID-19, however, resulted in the absence of statewide summative data in 2021. So we relied on statewide summative data and local data from 2019 through 2021 to inform our actions, most prominently stakeholder input. What we know currently is that pending California legislative action, the proposed plan for the dashboard and California accountability system will be similar to this last year, and that the requirement to publish a 2021 dashboard will be eliminated until December 2022. Instead, the California Department of Education will publish data that would have been included on the dashboard on DataQuest or another internet website. Work on the 2021-24 Lcap resumed after guidance was provided by the California Department of Education. To continue what we started on the Lcap, we developed a strategy that allowed us to build on the work that we did last year, reflect on what we learned this year, and refine our actions for the 2021-24 Lcap. As I mentioned, in the absence of statewide summative data, we relied on local data to inform our actions, which included stakeholder input. Beginning in January and continuing through March of 2021, the district continued its stakeholder engagement outreach to help inform the 2021-24 Lcap. Stakeholder engagement listening sessions were held with students, families, and staff employee groups. One of the ways that we engaged our stakeholders was through affinity mapping, which is a process that creates a space for participants to lift their individual voice and bring them together into one collective voice. You can see that represented here with the individual ideas reflected on the yellow, blue, and pink sticky notes, and the themes that represented the group's thinking on the orange sticky notes. We asked 3 questions connected to the Lcap focus area goals and the learning continuity and attendance plan themes. The questions focused on student learning, feeling connected to school, and summer programs. This is an example of how we organized the stakeholder input we collected, so we could look across groups and questions to identify overarching themes. The Lcap pack also provided considerations that included this most recent stakeholder input. Some key themes that emerged across stakeholder groups included stakeholder voice and engagement, mental health supports, differentiated academic and social emotional supports, inclusive environments and relationship building, and college, career, and life skills. This information was then used to support the planning and development of the 21-24 Lcap. Staff focus area teams came together once again to revise and align actions to our Lcap focus area goals, stakeholder input key themes, and Lcap pack considerations. We believe that in order for us to improve as a district, we need to hear from those that are directly impacted by our work, and that is our students. One of the highlights of this process is that we conducted approximately 50 listening sessions in total, 33 of which were with students. This resulted in student voice representing 66% of all the input that we collected. What's more exciting is that lifting student voice is an area that we are still growing, expanding, and improving upon. One of the groups that supported us and will continue to support us in leading this meaningful stakeholder engagement is our San Juan Youth Voice Advocates. I would like to introduce Christina Sparks, Coordinator of Special Programs and Grants, and Grace Seepy, who's a student at Meraki High School. We're going to go a little deeper into who they are as a group, the process they use to lift student voice, and to share with you their experience in leading this work.
Good evening, President Villescaz, members of the board, Superintendent Kern, and Mrs. Cunningham. My name is Christina Sparks, and I coordinate our district's Learning Communities for School Success program grant. Through this grant from CDE, we were able to pilot the San Juan Youth Voice Advocates. San Juan Youth Voice Advocates are a team of high school students who elevate student voice in San Juan Unified by facilitating listening sessions to meaningfully engage students in informing school and district decision-making in areas that directly impact them, such as the Local Control Accountability Plan. In the 2021 school year, 15 students from 7 schools participated in a 5-part training series with community partner Innovation Bridge. They cultivated skills to prepare them to facilitate listening sessions with other students as well as learning how to analyze and report the data they collected. Listening sessions are a culturally relevant practice of gaining stakeholder feedback, listening to those that will be impacted by policies, practices, and programs. San Juan Youth Voice Advocates learned a specific process of facilitating listening sessions that focuses on building community and trust, reflecting on stakeholder voice, and providing an opportunity for participants to share their thoughts in both written and verbal format. Youth Voice Advocates completed a total of 17 listening sessions in 3 months, including 10 high school sessions, 3 regional middle school sessions, and sessions with specific population groups, including Latinx students, Black and African American students, LGBTQ+ students, and foster youth. Their listening sessions included a total of 142 participants from 18 schools. Some of the Lcap groups represented in the sessions were Black and African American students, Latinx and Hispanic students, homeless students, and foster youth, and those students reclassified as fluent in English. Some of the key themes identified through these listening sessions were mental health, connections to others, real-world skills and opportunities, and academic supports. Feedback given during these sessions indicated that students appreciated the opportunity to share their thoughts about issues that affect their learning and their lives, and would like to have additional opportunities in the future. At the end of a listening session, one student shared, quote, "I think it would be helpful if we could do this regularly, give our thoughts about things that matter to us." Quote. All the credit must be given to our skilled San Juan Youth Voice Advocates who created the space for students to feel comfortable to open up. Tonight, we have 2 students who wanted to share their experiences with us. One person was not able to make it, so I'll read her prepared statement. This is from student Ashlyn Gordon, who prepared this statement ahead of time for us. Good evening, President Vasquez, members of the board, Superintendent Kern, and Mrs. Cunningham. My name is Ashlyn Gordon. I'm a freshman at Mesa Verde High School, and this is my first year with San Juan Unified School District. Over the past year, I was given the opportunity to facilitate several listening sessions over the course of a few months. During this time, I learned a lot from not only my co-facilitators, but also the students. Being able to have the opportunity to speak with students one-on-one to better understand their experiences with distance learning is something that may seem small, but really has a major effect. Not only did it give students the chance to be heard and understood, but it also gave students a chance to connect with each other, which is something that was cut off due to the shutdown of schools because of COVID-19. I was able to facilitate another session a few weeks back, specifically for middle school students, and it was one of the best Zoom experiences I have ever had. It is amazing to see how younger students have adapted to the world around them. It also was so cute because one of my kiddos was able to tell me and my partner about what their summer plans were and how they were excited to see their cousins now that we weren't on lockdown. To some, this may seem completely off topic, but instead I was able to have this small moment with this kid, and we were able to create an environment where they felt safe and able to be open. That's something that truly is important. I've had a lot of moments where I was able to reflect and think of my past experiences when it comes to schools, and overall, I can say that I have never seen any school district like San Juan Unified who put together a program that specifically focuses on the students. This truly shows how much our district cares about the students. As a freshman coming from a completely different district and not knowing anyone, I was able to create friendships as well as opportunities to help me better my understanding of working as a team. Not only did I have a successful school year, but I was also able to make sure my peers had an amazing experience as well. Being able to serve with the San Juan Youth Voice Advocates is something that will truly open your eyes to what goes on around the students in our community and district. I'm very thankful to have been given this opportunity. I'm very excited for the years to come as I continue my education in the San Juan Unified School District, as well as the future clubs and organizations that I will be able to serve with. Thank you. That was Ashlyn's statement, and we have in person here another Youth Voice Advocate who will be sharing her experiences, and this is Grace C.
Good evening, President Vasquez, members of the board, Superintendent Kern, and Ms. Cunningham. My name is Grace Seepy, and I'm a student at Meraki High School. It was one of my teachers that sent me a flyer about the San Juan Youth Voice Advocates program back in the fall. I was actually a member of the San Juan Strategic Planning Task Force back in 2019, and he thought this would be a perfect fit for me. This was definitely a rewarding opportunity to give my fellow peers a way to feel comfortable, safe, and most importantly, have their voices heard. I've given presentations to groups before, but for this one, I felt nervous for my first one I did at my own school. While most of the presentations I've given required me to present them information and have them listen to me, this was the other way around. I had to not only have good presentation skills, but I needed to create an environment that felt open and safe enough for students to want to share their thoughts. I knew I felt passionate about having my voice and other voices heard, but I wondered, other than the students in the program, if we were the only ones. COVID really zapped the life out of a lot of people, specifically students, and I know for many of us, it's really carried its toll for a long time. And it's still a part of our day-to-day, and I certainly didn't realize this would still be the case after all this time. It was already going to be difficult to have students turn on their cameras, and to get students to feel motivated for this after going through such a rough year just felt like such a large challenge to accomplish. And I couldn't blame anyone either for feeling this way. But I proceeded and practiced what the training sessions taught me leading up to the presentations. We weren't able to get as many students as we wanted to come, and it was a struggle to get some students there to be involved. But the students that did participate were so involved, talkative, and you could tell they truly spoke from their hearts about ways to improve our community. It made me realize that there are many students out there that do want this opportunity we gave them. One student told me after the session that he felt renewed and he appreciated having the spotlight to say his opinion. And that just felt so amazing, and it really did make my day. While I can't understand that we are still learning to understand the world, this doesn't change that the district is here to support us teenagers, and we should be given a say in how that's done. I'm really grateful that the San Juan Voice Advocates is here to make that happen for us, and it's been a great experience to serve my community in this way. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. I'm appreciative of the dedication our Youth Voice Advocates have shown to elevating youth voice, as well as their commitment to developing and expanding the San Juan Youth Voice Advocates program. They have truly put into action our district's shared values of inclusivity, real-world knowledge, voice, social and emotional intelligence, and perseverance. I'm grateful for the opportunity to continue this work supported by the LCSSP grant with community partner Innovation Bridge in collaboration with John, as well as our Equity and Family and Community Engagement departments. Thank you.
Thank you. As you might recall, the 2017-2020 LCAP was designed around two goals. One notable change to this iteration of our LCAP is that it is designed around 4 goals that are listed here, which are also our focus areas. When you look a little deeper into the document, you see that for each goal, there are metrics, action titles, and action descriptions that target specific areas of our work. What I would like to do now is share the action titles within each of our goals and highlight a few notable actions where changes were made. Our first goal is focused on building community relationships and connecting students and families with available resources. The actions within this goal include partnering with and creating opportunities for families across our diverse district to assume leadership and decision-making roles that address specific school, region, and district-wide needs, staff and resources to support homeless and foster youth as well as English learners, targeted support for newcomer and refugee students, increasing access to public meetings, and improving workforce diversity. I want to highlight, as indicated by the arrows, that within these actions, we have increased funding by $100,000 for additional translation support to improve communication, added a new action and increased funding by $55,000 to expand access to public meetings via in-person and virtual platforms, and increased funding by $50,000 to support the recruitment and retention of a diverse staff. Our second goal is focused on creating inclusive, safe, equitable, culturally responsive, and healthy environments for students by integrating social and emotional learning. The actions within this goal include social, emotional, behavioral support to schools through direct services to students, professional development to support sites with alternative practices to suspension, such as positive behavioral interventions and supports, restorative practices, and social emotional learning, Prevention services focused on reducing substance abuse and increasing student leadership opportunities. A few highlights within these actions include increased staffing and funding of $150,000 for campus supervision and safe routes to school planning, piloting and implementing a mentoring program that provides wraparound support services to students, increasing student voice and strengthening existing student leadership groups such as the San Juan Youth Voice Advocates, Superintendent Student Advisory Council, Black Visionaries in Leadership, and Pride PAC, as well as increasing access to substance abuse, bullying prevention, and social emotional learning education through programs and services including Second Step, peer mediators, Safe Schools ambassadors, classroom presentations, and professional development. Our third goal is focused on providing a challenging and engaging broad course of study, along with differentiated support that prepares students to be critical thinkers. The actions within this goal include professional learning for teachers, focused on differentiated instruction, student engagement, access for all students, and English learner instruction. Staffing to support school programs, academic and social emotional learning, English language development instruction, and college and career readiness. Targeted academic and social emotional interventions through small group instruction and tutoring, and access to before and after school programs in the arts and physical education. Within these actions, I want to highlight that we have increased funding by $1.2 million for additional staffing and sections to provide English language development instruction. We've also increased funding by $60,000 to support before and after school programs in the arts. And we've provided $660,000 to sustain and continue the co-teaching and newcomer program at Dyer Kelly. Our fourth goal is focused on helping students identify their strengths, find what excites them, and prepare them for success in college, career, and life. The actions within this goal include high school counseling support, credit recovery options to high school graduation and alternative routes to finishing high school, support with college access, strength finding, and exposure to college and career opportunities at the elementary, middle, and high school level, and early childhood education summer programs focused on transitioning into school. Within these actions, we have increased exposure to career technical education pathways for elementary students, increased sections of AVID for our new Encina Middle School, and added a new action and increased funding by $20,000 to support TK through 8th grade students with college and career planning through strength finding and self-discovery. As a system, we are also being purposeful about braiding funds, services, and supports through 2024. So as you can see here, many of our LCAP actions are connected to and being enhanced by the actions in our Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant. Finally, I would like to share with you our 2021-22 budget by providing an overview of our projected revenue and expenditures. This first chart shows the total revenue San Juan expects to receive in the coming year from all sources. School districts receive funding from different sources, including state funds under the local control funding formula known as LCFF, other state funds, local funds, and federal funds. LCFF funds include a base level of funding as well as extra funding called supplemental grants based on the enrollment of low-income, English learner, and foster youth students. The total revenue projected for San Juan is $497,089,694, of which $382,665,618 is LCFF, $72,393,512 is other state funds, $6,084,743 is local funds, and $35,945,821 is federal funds. Of the $382,665,618 in LCFF funds, $36,283,965 is generated based on the enrollment of our low-income, English learner, and foster youth students. The second chart provides an overview here of how much San Juan plans to spend for the 2021-22 school year and how much of our total general fund expenditures is tied to the planned actions and services in the Lcap. San Juan plans to spend $550,431,895 for the 2021 school year, and of that amount, $311,474,600 is tied to actions and services in the Lcap. An example of the type of budgeted expenditures that are not included in the Lcap but are integral to the district's ability to serve students and families include district and school general operating and housekeeping expenses, routine repair and maintenance, insurance, special education services, COVID-19 related expenditures, and other certificated and classified employee salaries and benefits. President Villescaz, this concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer questions from the board. Thank you.
Thank you to the team for the presentation. We will formally declare a public hearing at this time. I declare the topic of the Local Control and Accountability Plan a public hearing, and it is now open for public comment. Mr. Allen, are there any public comments on this item at this time?
We do have one hand raised at this time. And just as a reminder, if you've joined us on Zoom and would like to offer a comment on this specific item, you can do that by clicking that raise hand button found at the bottom of your screen on your desktop or mobile device, or *9 if you have dialed into the meeting tonight.
Thank you, and please proceed. And just a quick reminder that public comments are limited to 2 minutes.
Our first comment will come from Mr. Scott Rafferty. Mr. Rafferty, when you're ready.
Mr. Rafferty, you might be on mute.
Mr. Rafferty, we are still showing you on mute, sir. And Mr. Rafferty, giving you another few moments. We still do show you on mute. If you'd like to offer a comment on this item.
Okay, as a reminder, we do also have item L, our visitor comments. Mr. Allen, are there any other raised hands at this time?
We have no raised hands at this time.
Okay, I'm just going to make one more call to see if, is there still a raised hand for Mr. Rafferty?
There is still a raised hand for Mr. Rafferty.
All right, Mr. Rafferty, one more opportunity. Okay. There being no other comments indicated at this time, I declare the public hearing closed. At this time, I'm going to go to my colleagues for any questions or comments, and we'll go ahead and go in order here. And so we'll begin with Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you. I appreciate the report. Appreciate the student voice. Gracie, welcome. Appreciate you being here. I just have a couple comments and questions about the formality of the committee. There was some concern about participation on that. And so the community is aware the Lcap is a group of individuals that were a board member does not assign a person to be part of that committee. And so my question to you is, how do we plan on recruiting numbers to meet that expectation of committee members that we need to function properly? I guess there was some concerns about, we have 9, there was 11, 12, or whatever the number is. How do we plan on recruiting for that, as well as recruiting the more student voice to be part of the Lcap committee?
Thank you for your question. So the first step that we'll take is we'll definitely want to continue working with our current co-chairs on the Lcap committee for additional ideas. Our co-chairs are a great conduit for also eliciting input from not only the Lcap committee, so we'll be able to elicit feedback and input from them. I think there are opportunities for us to also partner with our Family and Community Engagement Department, as well as our Equity Department as well, to make sure that we are engaging families that may not be represented on our Lcap currently, and we want to increase representation on our committee. And then with regard to student voice, in addition to working with Ms. Sparks here, we're also going to be working with Ms. Lori Vine, who's in our Equity Department as well, to increase student voice as well.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Ms. Costa?
I'd also like to thank the group tonight for the presentation and for the work on the Lcap. It was many hours of reading this weekend and cheering for the breadth of our LCAP. When you look at it, it touches our students from early childhood education to post-secondary education. And you look at topics and it's all areas of academics, mental health, interventions to support our students, acceleration to support our students, the arts, which we have had emails about, and that's discussed in our LCAP. I really like the fact that our ELO and LCAP support each other seamlessly, and I think that's going to make a huge difference. Although there was a lot of discussion about stakeholder engagement, I think back, I served on as the board liaison to our first LCAP PAC, and then for about 3 years after that. And the amount of engagement in the beginning of LCAP was limited to the LCAP PAC and our DLAC parents. And that was the engagement. We slowly added a few students, but again, there were the students that were part of LCAP PAC, not anyone beyond that. Interestingly enough, as I went around the state through as part of CSBA, I found that we were doing more than most districts across the state. And that wasn't as broad as what you just described in this report. I was so pleased by the amount of student voice and so pleased by the number of parents who participated as well. Was it every parent in the district? No, but certainly much more than we have ever had. So thank you very much. I really think that's fantastic. In terms of a question, I looked at the number of targets not met, and it was considerable. And I tried to come up with an answer, and I think I would have called any one of you this weekend, except I try not to call people on Saturdays and Sundays. Are the number of targets not met due to distance learning, due to an instructional issue, due to the targets not being set too high? What is your sense of why we had so many targets not met?
So the number of targets that are not met, I think, is a result of a combination of what you just mentioned around distance learning, target metrics maybe being too high, and other factors. So for example, a few examples of some other factors might include actions that were not fully implemented as planned, as well as alignment between actions and metrics. So in developing our 21-24 LCAP this year, we've really taken some steps to address these issues. For example, focus area teams have been meeting to align actions to stakeholder input. We've adjusted target metrics so that they are both ambitious but also feasible. And we've been adjusting metrics and actions to make them more aligned to one another. And then also we've been spending time learning more about and applying those continuous improvement principles that I had mentioned earlier in the presentation, specifically working to better understand what's working, not working, for whom, and why.
Thank you. And lastly, Grace, thank you for coming on the last day of school. That was really, your report was excellent. I really appreciate it. Will be interested next year to learn more about the work that Christina, that your group is doing. So thank you.
Ms. Creason.
Thank you for the report. I want to start with Gracie too. Thank you for your input. And I do have one question for you. If I heard you correctly, you said you were engaged to participate through a flyer from your teacher. Did I hear that right? So I'm wondering, do you have any input or suggestions, not to put you on the spot, you could email it later if you want, or we can have a phone call, any other suggestions on how we can engage your peers? And also, so that's part one, and then I have a follow-up.
Okay, it is. Well, I guess I said, like, this year, COVID's just really knocked a lot of people out. Like, my sister is just totally uninvolved. She just moved to Del Campo, and looking at a screen all day long and feeling like she doesn't have any friends or, like, even met her teachers, really, it's just completely you feel so isolated in her academic grades had gone down so much. And she's a really smart kid. I think she's smarter than me. It's just a lot of people, I know she's not the only one to feel that way. And so to ask students probably in the spring when they're all kind of feeling just drained, I know, like I said, I don't really blame anyone for feeling not motivated. So I think COVID was definitely a big problem. But next year, if possible, we can get people to be in person, see face to face. I think that will definitely alone be motivating.
So thank you for that. Yep, I hear you. Everything you just said, it's just hard. It's asking a lot to just get through the day, and then to do extra is a lot. So thank you for doing that. And no criticism for those that just couldn't do that. Absolutely. Another question, and maybe this is maybe not a question that's fair to ask because it was distance, but do you know if you were personally asked to engage, or was it a wide net that was cast with many students that had an opportunity to engage if they wanted to? I'm sorry if you don't know the answer.
Do you mean if I was motivated by someone else, or I don't fully understand the question?
So what you were asked if you wanted to participate, like were you one of many that got that flyer?
Oh, I was just one of few who got that flyer.
Okay, thank you for that. And thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. A couple of thoughts. I would love for all of our invites to be really widespread. So I love that we are doing targeted engagement too, and not just relying on someone getting this email or getting a phone call, or the many, many things that we do, that we really are reaching out. And I understand with COVID, it's hard for me to let that come out of my mouth because, it's just hard to do anything, but wouldn't be Zoom if I didn't say it. So there's that. During earlier this evening, there was talk about counselor to student ratios. And I know that has come up before. So I want to differentiate two things. When we're talking to counselor to student ratio, it does not mean the same thing as a mental health professional to student ratio. Those are two different things. I understand that counselor means a mental health professional in some settings, but that's not how we mean it here. So I'm wondering, and if it's okay if you have to follow up with me, what is our ratios for both of those numbers or categories?
So I'll begin by answering that question by saying that, we are taking a comprehensive multi-tiered system of support approach. So that includes, in addition to counselors, social workers, psychologists, mental health therapists, social emotional technicians, college and career technicians, community partnerships, programs, and school staffing training as well. In terms of our current numbers, or in terms of staffing, for counselors, we have 78 full-time equivalents. Social workers, we have 21 full-time equivalents. Psychologists, we have 28.8 full-time equivalents. Mental health therapists, we have 16 full-time equivalents. Social emotional technicians, we have 3.25 full-time equivalents. We also have interns that fluctuate from year to year, so we don't have an exact number there. And we also have site-funded positions as well that are not included in these numbers. So sites have local control to use their Expanded Learning Opportunity Grant, LCFF, and Title I funding to hire additional social emotional learning positions based on site need. So, the American School Counselor Association recommendation is a ratio of 250 to 1. If you take into account our entire social emotional learning team, we have 147 full-time equivalents, which gives us a student to staff ratio of 272 to 1. And if you include our interns and site-funded positions, then that'll put us even closer to meeting that recommended ratio of 250 to 1.
Thank you for that.
Ms. Christina, I think that's one of the things where when we even look back 10 years ago, I think we would have had no social workers. And so we didn't have mental health therapists. So as we've built and we've looked at the needs of our students, we often go to this title of just counselor. And we're even looking at that differently at the needs of the school. I'll give you another example. When schools became Title I's, they used to get an additional administrator. And the question we're asking is, do you really need another administrator? Or is there another position to provide support, like a social worker, like a whatever, it's up to the school. So I hope we can get to the point where we really look at all of those positions, because there are so many more people meeting the needs of students in that capacity. I mean, you have, Ms. Villasquez, you and I were talking about this. You have the academic needs, you have the social emotional needs, you have some behavioral needs. All of those can be met by different positions that John spoke to. So I hope we can talk about those numbers looking through those lenses.
I agree. And so in my land of Mental Health America, California, when I was the president and CEO of that organization for quite some time, we had the same conversation. It's not always a clinician that needs to do the job. And so I apologize if I wasn't clear. When I
No,
say
you
mental
were-
health professional, I'm kind of thinking big net, but I need to probably figure out a better way to say that. I'm a huge advocate for peer support specialists. Those are people that have lived experience of these challenges, of challenges that can support and have that lived experience and different dynamic with other people that are struggling. So totally agree with everything that you
Yeah.
said.
No, I appreciate that, because even like when we talk with students, the conversation we've had with my SSAC is they would say, because mental health has been one of the key issues they've wanted to address, they've actually said we need more mental health therapists. That's really been if we were to add one of those supports in the area, that's where they would say, because they see some of those needs that those students having being so extreme and the issues they're facing. So yeah, I hear you, and I appreciate your support of that as well.
Yeah, and I could talk about this for a long time, and so I won't, but I will say too, I mean, I know that there is a mental health professional, and I'm wide net, that means a lot of things, shortage. And so there's a lot of positions and a lot of need within our district and our nation that aren't filled. They just aren't filled. Even when you call some healthcare providers and you're in crisis, it's months and months and months before you could even get any support. So I also want to recognize that too, that we just have a general shortage of people that can provide that support. Okay, moving on. So I have to go there. What's up with the committee not approving the plan? What happened there?
The committee not approving the plan?
Earlier it was stated that the LCAP PAC, I think it's called something, the LCAP Advisory Committee did not approve this plan or didn't review the plan as written. Can you
Right.
talk a little bit more about that?
John,
yes.
John, it was stated that they did not see the entire plan. They only saw a draft. So if you can speak to that.
Of course. So the intention, and this is through CDE guidance, is to make the LCAP more accessible to the community. And so one of the ways that we're able to make things more accessible is to consolidate the budget expenditures as well as the actions. So the process we used is in partnership with our LCAP co-chairs. We worked on a way to consolidate the LCAP so it's not in the form that you're seeing right now, but in the form that it would have the goals, the metrics, the stakeholder input that was provided through our listening sessions that were tied to each of those goals, the actions that were in the LCAP, as well as the projected budgeted expenditures. And
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
my apologies. I know there was a second part about approving the LCAP, and it's just my understanding that the LCAP provides considerations. And so during that process, when the LCAP PAC was reviewing the plan, we followed a process where they were able to find connections between stakeholder input and the actions, and then as well as provide considerations based off of not only the LCAP PAC considerations that were provided in previous year, but also based off of the stakeholder themes and input that were generated between January and March that we shared in the presentation.
So I'm sorry, I'm just not following. So in the past, we've presented an LCAP to the committee and they either approved it or they didn't approve that. And it sounds like they were provided with a truncated version of what we're seeing tonight and they were asked for comments and recommendation or feedback, but not asked. There wasn't a formal approval process this time. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, and my understanding is that yes.
And I don't know that we've got to kind of, I don't know that every year they took a formal vote on it because it isn't something, they're an advisory committee. I know at times they may have done that. We could look back and specifically maybe follow up with what were the actions in each of those years in terms of whether there was a formal vote or not.
I know in my short time, there has been 2 formal votes. I know when I came onto the board, it was unanimously not approved. And then
I remember that one.
after, yeah, you remember that. And then shortly after though, the good news, it was unanimously approved. So I know that did happen. And I just know I really do rely on the stakeholders to do the deep dive, in our board advisory committees to do that work. And, then it's not, I hope, please don't take this. Yeah, because I ask this of all the committees, like, okay, what did the committee say? My colleagues hear me say it all the time. What did facilities say? What did curriculum and standards say? Because it's just a different lens. They do a deeper dive than I'm ever able to do in that way and have that dialogue on that level. So it would be helpful before I'm asked to approve that if that process can happen.
And I think what we need to, we'll look into that. Because I think we really need to even look at what does it say in the education code around the requirements and responsibilities of a PAC. So we'll clarify that. And by the time this comes back to the board, we'll be able to specifically address that with you.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. McKibben.
Yeah, and I do remember on this item, I believe it was the 2018, one of the things that the folks from Sacramento County Office of Education said, and why are you asking them to approve the committee? It was one of the questions they asked us, because many districts, as I understand, don't even ask for an approval on this. So one of the things I'd also like to point out is looking at the stakeholder groups that, and I recall as Ms. Costa did, that when in the beginning, we were actually asking 2 stakeholder groups to work on this. Now there are 24, including 17 different student groups that provided information on how we were doing and what we were doing, and the ways that indeed we can improve. I think that I was particularly interested in that number and how it has increased and changed over time. Congratulations related to that. As I read the point, I wanted to point out some places which I think have to do with looking at this historically and over time, such as, for example, on page 60, that we have a problem resolution coordinator in there that is a relatively new position. And I wanted to see if how I know that with the change in the director that changed, but how are we doing on that one? Is that moving forward?
Yes, that is moving forward.
The other ones that I looked on page 83, and I'm just using the page numbers in the agenda item, not the of 180 numbers, that the amount of information there related to substance abuse, that appears to be a much higher volume and much more frequency than anything that we have done. Can anyone talk a little bit about that and how that is proceeding?
That is a question that I can have members of a team who are specifically focused on that work definitely reach out to you with that.
It was impressive. I was very impressed with that sort of thing. Similarly, one of the things that we taking the programs that we've had, like the work in high schools related to AP courses and so forth, and I saw the remarkable advances that were being made by persons of color in taking advanced placement courses as I think that appeared to be unprecedented. Susan, you're shaking your head on that one. I was particularly impressed with that one. Any comment or thought on how we got there on that one?
Ms. Schnapp, can we maybe have a mic move? Yeah, I just want to make sure that those in attendance can also hear your reply.
Am I on?
Yep.
EOS is something that we partnered with. They were able to use PSAT information to really identify students 3 years ago. We also then, at each of the high schools, connected students with staff members who encourage students to take more rigorous classes. The 3-year contract with EOS was just renewed. So we are, with the help of our ELO funding, able to renew that EOS grant, and we'll be able to work with students again in that cycle. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah. And finally, the other one that I wanted to note, it was mentioned earlier that relating to family engagement, we used only 11 people to get our feedback. Does anyone have any comments related to that?
Yeah, that we definitely hope to have for more participants and definitely see this as an area of growth for us moving forward. Oh, sure. So the process we used, we followed the state guideline, which is both a tool and a process to bring together a group of diverse stakeholders together to have a discussion around areas focused on building relationships, building partnerships, and seeking input for decision making. And then from there, the participants would do a self-reflection based off of the discussion. So they represent not necessarily their individual perspective, but the perspective of the stakeholder group that they're representing in this particular context.
They were coming from groups as representatives of those groups. It wasn't their individual reflection.
Correct. And they had the representatives include the Lcap PAC, DLAC, CAC, American Indian Education PAC, and we also partnered with the FACE and Equity Department to connect with additional stakeholder groups, including LGBTQ+, African American, low income, and our homeless community as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McKibben, and thank you as well to the team. My colleagues have touched on a number of the questions I have, but I'm going to focus just a little bit more on kind of procedure and process. I'll admit it's hard. I'm having a little bit of time kind of reconciling this with ELO, with a lot of the other conversations we've recently had, and I think I'm probably not the only one having a challenge doing that. And so we've got this we're in such an odd period of time, exacerbated by, of course, COVID, but also just all of these other processes. And I feel like it's resulted in a little bit of like an identity crisis for the Lcap in terms of, there's no question of the authority and the role it plays, because that's in statute, right? But it seems really weird and challenging to adopt a 3-year plan in the midst of a lot of other structural, both investments, changes, while transitioning instructional models, et cetera. So I just wanted to kind of step back and take that into consideration. But I'm also just wondering, looking kind of historically at Lcap, we went through multiple versions of the Lcap template that CD, and even this process in and of itself has evolved significantly since it started. And I'm just wondering if there's any other external conversations being had about the role and the expectations around a 3-year plan that's being built now and how that interacts with COVID and all the other plans we've been asked to create, really rapidly and in a short period of time and concurrently. That's like a really broad question, but I really welcome any input from the whole team on kind of what their thoughts are on that, because it's just a really odd time and an odd structure considering everything else that's going on.
I think I want to affirm, yes, we've been in kind of a precarious situation in terms of the planning process for all of these pots of money. And last year, you may remember, we started the process in terms of, as Dr. Tornatore had mentioned, with our strategic planning, and we built our 4 focus areas, which we're going to then map onto the Lcap. And then we had to pause that process, build a learning continuity plan, a learning attendance and continuity plan, implement that, and then now 1 year later, revisit what we had started in motion and we had to push pause on. In addition, all the while being given the opportunity to write a plan for the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant and seeing how we can utilize these funds to build plans that connect and support each other, but also are multi-year so that we have time to implement actions and really measure impact. And so what we tried to share at the last board meeting in terms of ELO was that mapping onto the 4 focus areas and really taking the opportunity with the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant to go above and beyond what the state was asking for, which was really just a 1-year plan, and to create a multi-year plan that allowed us to try on actions and services, all the while implementing the actions and services in the LCAP. So we see a real opportunity. So I guess I want to affirm for lack of a better term, it's a bit wonky this year. But there is a lot of opportunity given that we have 2-3-year plans that we can implement together in concert and measure actions along the way, measure our impact that will help inform future plans, our future LCAP when we revisit this in 3 years. So there's been a lot of conversation. I think Superintendent Kern can talk about conversations that happen with the legislature and also in the county among superintendents, because it's been a very complicated planning process for everybody.
I think we even alluded to that at the last when we presented the ELO, that we were really looking at how do we match these together? Because when you get the amount of one-time funds that we get, how do you utilize them to the best of our ability to really see an impact on students? And so when we look at, as Deputy Superintendent Bassnelli said, this plan and the other plan, we're going to come to a point where we're going to need to look at the actions that we utilize for our ELO funds and even some of the actions in the LCAP and say, which ones do we really want to continue? We should be having those ongoing conversations over the next couple of years, even learning from school to school when they've done things differently and maybe shifting, so that when those one-time funds are gone, what are really the actions that we absolutely say we need to continue? Are they related to personnel? Are they related to some other kind of supports, contracts with the EOS? What is it? And so we need to be continuing to bring that information back to the board and not just waiting. I mean, obviously we need to get through next year as we're implementing these programs, but we just see them really married together.
And I think I want to add what is presented to you tonight in the LCAP. Some of the actions, many of the actions are a continuation of practice that we've had in the past with refinements. And there's some actions that are new that Dr. Torrentore had highlighted. And this is all a part of our continuous improvement work. So with our continuous improvement work, we are consistently monitoring progress and measuring impact to see what needs to be adjusted, adapted, revised, or at times abandoned as a result of, again, measuring the impact. So what we share with you tonight is a real result of continuous improvement efforts, recognizing that it's been a very challenging year and a half in just navigating the effects of what's been happening in our world with the pandemic.
Thank you for the feedback. I do appreciate that because I'm just trying to kind of reconcile kind of this lengthy process with a lot of work that's gone into it and the seeming disconnect now that we're kind of hearing this evening on this. And I will say just a few things that I think would be helpful. I appreciate, Ms. Bassnelli, your reflections, but even just an easy way to kind of identify, some of the actions that are continuation. I know that they have years here. I've read through it, and what I'm not asking for is like every year that we've ever done, because that would be an impossibly long document, but just kind of a quick flag. I think that would be helpful. And then another thing that would, I think, help my more complete understanding is just really going through, I can make some assumptions on what is COVID impacted and what's not, but just particularly where areas where budgeted expenditures don't match the actuals, I know, and I'm making assumptions that a lot of that is COVID impacted, but I'd just be curious to kind of identify it so that we're all collectively on the same page. And then I also just want to just clearly identify that I think the direction, both given by the state and others, in terms of kind of focusing the conversation, I think resulted in a little bit of a communications gap with kind of the outcome being this long document. And so there's always definitely room for improvement, but as I'm listening to both the presentation, to our participants, to our LCAP chair, et cetera, I think that might have been where the disconnect happened. And I completely understand how that came about. It's a lot of work. And in the past, we have all heard reports about it being very dense and just a lot of material. So how do you, in an effort to really incorporate and increase meaningful engagement, how do you make those conversations that take place hours after business has already happened, when folks are with their families, how do you really genuinely increase that participation? And so I appreciate how we ended up there. And I just want to kind of identify, I think, where I think the ground didn't quite match up. I think that's about it at this time, other than to express my gratitude. Thank you very much. I know that this is already a pretty big lift, and when you add a lot of other things happening, it's that much more of a lift. And Grace, I also want to thank you for your participation. It was already noted that today is the last day of school, so I'm sure you could have thought of a couple of other ways to spend your evening, but we really, really appreciate you joining us here this evening. I'm going to just take a pause just because it is such a significant item to see if any of my colleagues have any further questions or comments. Ms. Greason?
And I could probably find some, it would just be helpful if we could be pointed to the requirements, the statute requirements of Lcap, because I know that that was referred to in my comments of what does the state require? And I know Dr. McKibben, what does the state require? And I understand that, there's that baseline. That does not mean that we can't go above and beyond. We tend to do that. We're that kind of district, or, we like to raise the bar. And I'm not saying that that's what we have to do all the time, but I'm just curious, what does the statute say? And I guess where my brain's going with this is this an advisory committee to the board or an advisory committee to the staff? And I think that it's probably the board, but of course the staff gets what you need, to be able to do your work from that. For me, I kind of need that piece, and it can't always have a filter, and that's kind of how it feels. And I don't mean that was an intentional, trying to silence. I don't mean it any way like that. And I also, as I say this, recognize it's COVID-y. It's all COVID-y and everything's weird. And just like Deputy Superintendent Bassanelli said, so many gears were shifted on what were you planning? What were you writing? What were you doing so fast as everything else was going on? So I recognize that as I say what I'm saying. But those are my thoughts.
Thank you very much. Tonight, this was a discussion item. I appreciate the participation, and it will return for action on June 22nd. Thank you very much to the entire team.
Thank you.
Thank you as well, Ms. Green, for joining us. With that, we are at item I2, the Choices Charter School Local Control and Accountability Plan. Ms. Flagler, I believe you are with us via Zoom. Please,
Yes.
when you are ready.
Okay, good evening, President Viasquez, members of the board, Superintendent Kern, and Ms. Cunningham. The superintendent is recommending that the board hold a public hearing regarding revisions to the San Juan Choices Charter School 21-24 Lcap. Although Choices is not making a separate PowerPoint presentation this evening, we are joined by Choices Director, Mr. Tony Otto, to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Flagler, and thank you, Mr. Otto, for being here as well. I declare the topic of the Choices Charter School Local Control and Accountability Plan a public hearing, and it is now open for public comment. Mr. Allen, are there any public comments on this item at this time?
We've not had any comments submitted for this item. If you have joined us on Zoom tonight and would like to offer a comment for this item, click that raise hand button found at the bottom of your screen or *9 on your telephone keypad. And seeing no raised hands at this time, President Viasquez.
Okay, there being no comments, I declare the public hearing closed. Do any board members have questions or comments at this time? Ms. Costa?
I just have a compliment. Compliments to your staff for their collaboration with their peers and the extension of office hours to meet with students And the fall 2020 student and parent survey results were outstanding. I'll be interested to see the fall 2021 survey results when they come out. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry. I jumped in. You have anything to add? You can, Mr. Hodo.
Oh, no, just thank you, Ms. Costa. I appreciate that.
Ms. Creason.
Kind of the same question. I see that, and hello, it's good to see you at the end of the year. I see it's really the same question. I see that this went to your advisory council, and I'm wondering what action, if any, they took. What was the recommendation? What came out of that?
Well, much like our student enrollment, our advisory council is small, and they had a few questions about where money was being spent and how we were addressing distance learning, not having our classes on campus. But for the most part, they agree with how we're proceeding and appreciated everything that we're doing.
Dr. McKibben.
Again, I wanted to say congratulations on your participation related to your surveys and that sort of thing. Your responses were very impressive and so forth. I do have one kind of strange off the wall question, and that is on the yoga class. I noticed that it was disbanded. Was that because of lack of interest, lack of, and I thought it was particularly interesting that you had it included as part of the curriculum. And I was almost disappointed that it didn't get picked up. Do you want to comment on that?
Well, that was an interesting idea that was brought forward by one of our teachers. And the intent of that was to really help with student mental health, finding the meditation and the calmness, as well as the strenuous exercise that yoga can be involved with. But it just was something we couldn't really find somebody that was able to commit to lead the group. And then, of course, the site's closed. So, but we're going to look at that again. And again, with all the kids that we're getting with anxiety and the feelings of isolation now after the last year and a half, I think it might be a good thing to get kids back together with some adults and practice that mindfulness and relaxation to try and get yourself centered and focused again on your academics.
Any further comments or questions at this time? Okay, seeing none. Tonight, this was a discussion item and it will return for action on June 22nd. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Can I have just 1 minute?
Oh, sure.
I would just really like to thank the board and the district for all the support that we've received over at Choices, our little campus. Chris Ralston and Frank Camarda helping us out with all of our supplies. Mr. Skibitsky helping us out with technology needs, at the last minute. The support that we've received from the district has been phenomenal, and it's greatly, greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much. And with that, we are at item I3, the California Voting Rights Act update. Ms. Simlick.
Thank you and good evening, President Velasquez, board members, Superintendent Kern. I would like to introduce Michelle Cannon. She's a partner at Lozado Smith Law Firm, and she's going to present the board with some timelines regarding the Cvra process.
Good evening, trustees. I just have a short presentation for you tonight with a proposed timeline for proceeding through the Cvra transition process. As you will remember, last spring, you actually started the process before the pandemic hit in full force. You actually held your first pre-map public hearing in March, and then the following month paused the process until it was safe to resume public meetings and the state, opened up, which it seems like we are on the verge of. So the timeline you're going to see that I'm going to walk you through, and I'll share my screen here in a moment, of course, assumes that on June 15th, the state is essentially reopened, as we all have been informed that it will be. So this is barring any unforeseen circumstances or anything crazy that might happen in the next week or so. So let me go ahead and share. Okay, are we good?
We can see your screen.
Perfect. Okay. And what I'm going to do is just walk through, and it's just a timeline that we prepared for you. So it's not a PowerPoint presentation or anything like that. So again, I want to just a couple caveats. We're going to go through the statutory deadlines that apply in the California Voting Rights Act transition process. This is a draft timeline that we have coordinated already with your demographer. Your district is using Larry Furchaw of Cooperative Strategies. So he's on board with the dates in here as well. Again, any changes or delays though in the state reopening or rules that might be in place as far as public meetings and that sort of thing could impact the timelines. Our assumption in here assumes that the district will restart the transition process on June 15th. So at a meeting next week, and we'll go from there. The plan would be to submit a final approved map and a resolution to the Sacramento County Committee on School District Organization prior to July 26, 2021. So you'll see as we go through this proposed timeline that we're going to be going at a pretty fast pace, but it's definitely doable, and it will still allow for all of the great public participation, comment, community outreach that I know the district is interested in doing. So just as far as a key here, if you see anything that is in a red font, that indicates that it's a statutory deadline. If you see anything highlighted in yellow, that indicates that there's a required public hearing. And then everything in green indicates that it will be done at a special board meeting. Okay. So again, we've got the restart on June 15th. That'll be a special board meeting. That will be your pre-map public hearing number 2. Again, going back to March of 2020, you already held your pre-map public hearing 1. So you won't redo that. We will just move to the next step in the process, which is this pre-map public hearing number 2. The point of that discussion or that public hearing will be to explore and discuss and hear from members of the public and your demographer on what potential map line drawing criteria might look like, discussion around the potential increase from 5 trustees to 7, as we've heard public comment about that over the last quite a few board meetings. So that will be included as well. If it's desired, the board will adopt a resolution which will clarify or specify the criteria the demographer will consider when preparing a draft map. And so we will help prepare that draft resolution and get that to you for your meeting next week. And it will have a lot of options that the board can look at and decide upon based on not only your own desires, but whatever feedback and comment you get from the public at the public hearing next week as well. After that meeting is concluded, so for about the next week after that, the demographer then goes to work doing his magic and putting together draft trustee map area options. And he will prepare for you at least a few map options based on all of the statutory criteria he has to pay attention to. And he's going to do a presentation for you next week on all those details. And I know we've talked about it before at your pre-map public hearing 1 and at other presentations about what all those details are. So I won't spend a lot of time talking about that now, but he will work then to prepare the draft maps. June 22nd will be your deadline to publish at least 1 draft map before the next public hearing. And so that's generally published with a notice in the newspaper and then posting on your website and other locations where you generally will post things like that. And we will of course assist you in making sure that you get that done in a timely manner as well. June 29th then will be your next public hearing and meeting on this. And that will be another special meeting. And that will be a map review public hearing number 1. So remember, we have the 2 pre-map hearings. Now this will be our first basically map hearing. The demographer will make the presentation regarding proposed maps that he has prepared. You will have already posted and had your maps available for public review and comment and input. And then you'll hold the public hearing where again, you'll get input on what those draft maps look like. After that June 29th meeting, for the next couple of days, the demographer will have time to modify any trustee area maps if any changes are requested by the board. And this comes up sometimes when we see if the demographer, really sort of missed something really important to the board or the community, and there may be direction to make some small changes. So there's an opportunity to do that. This time period after the 29th and before July 7th would also be the time to get as much community input as you can. So a lot of districts will hold not special board meetings, but community meetings, community outreach meetings, staff can hold community meetings, whatever way your district thinks is best to try and obtain input from your community on what they would want these trustee area boundaries to look like. And it can also include, of course, the idea of potentially moving from 5 trustees to 7 trustees as well. Okay, July 1st will be the statutory deadline. If there are new maps drawn, it'll be the last day to publish at least one new draft map before the July 8th public hearing. Drop down. July 8th is going to be your last public hearing. It's called the map review public hearing number 2. It will also be the board meeting where you will adopt your map. So there will be a public hearing on map adoption as well. We're going to do both at the same night, and we can do that under the statute. That's not a problem. So the first part will be to the second map hearing to consider proposed maps, and again, more discussion and input. Then we'll move into the public hearing on the final map adoption and a resolution. And this is basically the resolution where you adopt a map that becomes the proposal that goes to the county committee and requests that it approve the map you've selected and a transition to by trustee area elections. We'll be asking them to do both those things, and it is the county committee that has the ultimate jurisdiction to approve those things for your district. So that'll happen on July 8th. The next day, assuming that we're a go and we've done those two things, we will submit the final map to the county committee for their consideration. We will ask that they hold their hearing and action to act on the request and the proposed map no later than July 26, 2021. So again, that would be essentially the end of the hearing process and the district and the county committee process. And if all goes well and as planned, then you would have an approved trustee area boundaries, and also would be looking, would have a decision on whether you're moving from 5 to 7 trustees or not. And just a caveat on that piece too, that may or may not become a part of this. It will really ultimately rest with the board and the input you get from the community on if that's something you want to include and move forward to the county. Okay, so assuming that the county committee approves a map and you're good to go, on September 31st is the current estimate of the federal census data to be released to the state of California. We've talked before about how the census data has been extremely delayed for a multitude of factors. So the current estimate right now is that it will be released to the state of California on September 31st. Then California reviews that census data and makes any necessary adjustments. And then in November of 2021, the census data becomes available to the public. At that point, your demographer and demographers for all districts that have by trustee area elections will analyze the new data and potentially prepare a redistricting study to determine whether there have been population balance shifts, movements, whatever that require boundary adjustments. And as I just mentioned, all districts that are already by trustee area election methods will be required to do this. So you'll be in the mix with all of the rest of those districts. If you have adjustments that are required, and again, hopefully I'm not repeating myself too much, but since we're moving forward now before the new census data, the 2020 census data has been released, we are going to be using the 2010 census data. And your demographer will walk you through that and some things he can do to try and take into account some more recent data that he has from different sources as well. But we are required to rely on the decennial census data. So your boundaries and your maps will be based on 2010. So we definitely will need to take a look at the updated census data when it's released and see what, if any, adjustments will be made. And I think we all assume that at least some adjustments will need to be made. So that will happen between December of 2021 and February of 2022. The district, you can hold public hearings to consider maps. You have some flexibility in how to handle the process at that point. During this time period and no later than February 28th, the district will adopt a map rearranging or readjusting trustee area boundaries to meet all the statutory requirements and based on the 2020 census data. And then that map will then be in place for basically the next 10 years. Come the November 2022 election, you would have your first by trustee area election occur. And then November 2024, you would have your second by trustee election area election occur. And then it would be in the regular election cycle after that, and the process would be complete. All trustees would be voted on pursuant to whatever trustee area they live in and voted on by the voters of those areas. So that's your quick timeline, a pretty quick synopsis of what we're hoping to do and what we plan to start for you next Tuesday. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Ms. Cannon, could you put that back up and scroll back to the community gathering? I want to provide a little bit more data or a little bit more detail on our end so that the community knows what that potentially will look like as well.
Yeah, hold on, let me find it here. I'll scroll up, Kent.
Yeah, go to where it talked about July 1st.
Perfect, okay, yeah.
So
Right.
it is our intent to try it. That is a short timeline, but what we want to do is we want to make sure that we try and get out representation across the district, as well as a virtual option as well. So we're looking at holding on Thursday, July 1st and Tuesday, July 6th, community gathering input sessions. We're looking at 3 locations across the district. To spread that out. So, you know, it might be West End, middle of the district, East End. It could be West End, Citrus Heights, you know, another area, as well as having a 4th option on each of those dates is having a virtual or a Zoom. So each of those dates would provide representation from across the district. Our intent to be consistent in how we would gather that or kind of present the same information would be to try and record Mr. Furchaw's presentation to the board on the 29th, share that as the piece so that everybody that attends those events would get the same information that was presented to the board and community members that came to the board. And then we would have some individuals who would facilitate the information gathering, gather that information. And then when we come back to the board on the 8th, along with representatives that are here, then we would provide a summary of that information. It could potentially allow the board to attend, as we have 4 locations, without having too many members at one location throughout the district. So we'll get more details on the exact locations and times. We want to be able to have an option as well to meet the needs of diverse language learners. So that virtual component with breakout rooms, utilizing interpreters, we're looking at that as well. So that would be again on Thursday the 1st and Tuesday the 6th, as we've got that narrow window between the 29th and the 8th. So that the board's aware of that and the community is aware as well.
Thank you for the update. At this time, I'm going to see, I'm going to check in with Mr. Allen in a moment, but I think Ms. Cannon, maybe not for the time being because we'll have the clock, but we'll probably need that document back up after public comment. Mr. Allen, I'm going to check in with you. Do we have any public comments on this item at this time?
We do have 2 hands raised at this time, President Villescaz.
Okay, as a reminder, public comment is limited to 2 minutes, and Mr. Allen will be sharing a clock that will count down the time. Mr. Allen, I'll allow you to invite you to call on names at this time.
Thank you, President Villescaz. Our first comment will come from Mr. Scott Rafferty. Mr. Rafferty, when you are ready, sir.
Hello, I raised my hand earlier in defense of Ms. Flores. I said earlier that you had, Ms. President Velasquez had violated the most clear and obvious rule of the Brown Act by her Facebook posts. That was incorrect. You violated it when you failed to allow Ms. Flores to self-translate. She's allowed 4 minutes. You invalidated everything you've done subsequently in this meeting. That is actually the clearest rule of the Brown Act. And that shows how defiant you are of reaching out to the Latino community. There's no one that doesn't understand that. And this is a further example, this piece that Ms. Cannon has put up. Her law firm pursued the same course in West Contra Costa of not sharing with the public in advance so that they could have an informed conversation about this, about strong-arming the plaintiff, ignoring the rights that we had in court. And where did it land them? It landed them with probably $1 million, most of it not going to me, or the great majority of it going to her law firm. That's the track you're on. The statutory deadline was June 8th, 2020. You no longer control this process in the way you think you control it. And you need to come to terms. I thought this was going to be relatively easy to settle now that the pandemic is receding. Obviously, it's not. You've taken a course that has really distanced yourself from the communities that you serve. So comply with the Brown Act, invite Ms. Flores back, and furthermore, we did not understand, and I could not tell my clients whether they could comment on this, because the way you described it, it's not an action item. And you say, once discussion happened, which it did, there's no further comment. So again, invite Ms. Flores back.
And thank you for your comment, Mr. Rafferty. Our next comment will come from Mr. Avey. Mr. Avey, when you are ready, sir.
Thank you. I just wanted to quickly comment and say thank you to the Board of Education and staff for moving forward with by-district elections. This is an important issue in the community. I know it's important to some of the board members, and I know it's a tight timeline and it's not easy, but I appreciate you going forward with it to make sure that it will happen. And it does look like staff is putting together as robust of community feedback as you can on such a short timeline, and it's noted and appreciated. And I would just once again urge the board to seriously consider 7 trustee districts when that does come to your attention. I think it is appropriate to the size of the district and representation throughout the district for geographic diversity. Thank you.
And thank you for your comment, Mr. Avey. Our next comment will come from Maria Grijalva. When you're ready.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. Again, I'd want to echo Scott Rafferty's sentiments. Please invite Ms. Flores to speak. And as he had said, the original aim was 2020, and you've gone away with it, and now you're aiming at 22. And I want to quote an article where it talks about at-large elections being the oldest trick in the book. Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg cited this method as being the preempt second-generation way to deny equal opportunity for minority voters and candidates. And so that's exactly what you've been doing by killing time and delaying this. I want to remind you and everyone that these are at-large elections are remnants of Jim Crow laws, and that's exactly what you've been doing by delaying this. You've been keeping alive Jim Crow laws, and I want to say shame on you, shame on you. And the only other word I can say is a racist, 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 and shame on you. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you for your comment. President Villescaz, that was our final raised hand. We do have a translation of Ms. Flores' comments if you'd like that played in English at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. First, I want to see if Ms. Flores is still with us on the Zoom and would like to translate it herself or offer any additional comments during our public comments on this item.
I do not see her on the meeting at this time.
Okay, then at this time, please read her translated comments.
Give me one moment, please.
As a Latino woman, grandparent, and activist advocating for our Spanish-speaking children, I give testimony that for about 20 to 30 years, the school board of San Juan Unified School District has failed continuously in providing an education that our Latino community deserves. The funds have been set apart in favor of more affluent neighborhoods. The remaining neighborhoods have been kept poor, lacking funding and resources, which is why our students struggle to excel in their learning. Our community group has presented a legal lawsuit against the district due to the lack of representation that is equitable across all neighborhoods. We ask that elections be held by district instead of general. In this manner, each neighborhood would be able to pick their own representative. The court has already declared that the elections that exist now are racist and illegal. Furthermore, we are circulating a petition asking for your support in expanding the board from 5 to 7 members, and we need signatures of registered voters in the District of San Juan. The two additional representatives would represent the communities of West Arden Arcade and Citrus Heights. In this manner, we ask for an end to injustice and historic corruption in the district. Please sign our petition and help us spread the word.
And that concludes the comment, Mrs. President Vasquez.
Is there any additional public comment at this time, Mr. Allen?
We have no hands raised, nor have we had any submitted comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. And at this time, I will turn it to my colleagues for questions or comments, and we'll begin with Mr. Hernandez. Sure, we'll do a second round. Ms. Costa? Ms. Creason? Dr. McKibben? Will you please press your mic, Dr. McKibben? Or not? Okay. I'll go ahead and go with a few questions, and then I'll turn it back to my colleagues. First, I had a few questions. One, we laid out the timeline. Ms. Cannon, you laid out the timeline moving forward, and can you speak a little bit to the additional external factors driving some of this timeline? I certainly think looking at it, if you had asked, is this an ideal timeline? I'm not sure anyone would agree. And so I'm just wondering if you can please add some context on how we got here.
Sure, absolutely. So again, you all started this process to consider making the transition to by trustee area elections last March. The pandemic hit, the governor issued several orders, not only putting stay-at-home orders in place, limiting public meetings and all that good stuff, but also he specifically included orders that stayed the provisions of the California Voting Rights Act transition process. So because those provisions were stayed, and that includes the timelines that districts had to go through the transition and complete the transition, all of those deadlines were stayed. And so they've been stayed this entire time. Once we restart on June 15th, which is the date I think that's been selected based on the state reopening and the district starting to now hold in-person meetings with an audience again, then that will restart those timelines under the Cvra. And essentially the district has a very short timeline to finish the process within the safe harbor deadlines of the Cvra. And that's the reason for this really clipped pace. It certainly would be nice if we had a limited time and could, spend a longer time, not have to do it all over this summer. But based on where we are and the state reopening on June 15th and those strict statutory timelines, that's what's forcing the district to do this in such a fast pace and at this specific time period.
Thank you. And a little bit of an addition to that, we've had the timelines, and of course you've mentioned the executive orders, et cetera. And I know that there have been some additional kind of weighing in from various courts throughout this process. Can you kind of speak to a little bit about kind of what we've heard from the courts in terms of a timeline and how this should play out?
Yeah, so in the litigation that's pending against the district, and of course I won't comment on anything that's confidential, but just the court's order, the judge in the case against the district, and there's also a case against the city of Folsom, and those were heard by the same judge on the same day, basically over the Cvra and these timelines. And the judge in both your case and in the case against the city of Folsom concluded very clearly that not only were those timelines stayed under the Cvra and under the governor's orders, but that the district and the city could not proceed while those orders were in place, because to do so would violate the orders, would violate the whole reason behind the orders, which is that it needed to wait until there could be public participation in person in a meaningful manner.
Thank you. And then with regards to the presentation specifically, and the document rather, I think there was a couple of places there where it indicated community input was sort of optional. I'm just going to go ahead and weigh in that from my perspective and speaking on my behalf. I would not consider those periods optional. The entire point, of course, was to engage the community. And similar to that point, there was some alluding to, Zoom participation in some of the community meetings, et cetera. So I just want to make it absolutely clear, these meetings will be in person, and we are adding kind of our, the ability to participate remotely. And so they will not be remote meetings. They will be in person, again, with that additional opportunity to participate. Is correct?
Yeah, with our intent, and I was going to clearly state this during the COVID update as well, so I can do it now, I think, is that on the 15th, when the state reopens, we will have the boardroom with seats in here again. We will have the ability, in fact, Mr. Allen today on a call said there really will be no spacing restrictions. We're still kind of waiting to see exactly what the mask guidance will be, but there won't be spacing restrictions. So we will be able to have in-person meetings. That is our intent moving forward, that we will have in-person meetings and that we will have the ability to stream those meetings via YouTube. So people will be able to watch those, and we will have a virtual way for people to comment, much like we've been utilizing with people writing in and those comments being read. And that will really be our format going forward, probably from now until the end of time.
And we're all very eager, of course, to get back to in person, but of course, appreciate that we've all accommodated odd ways of participating, and we'll kind of be keeping some of those practices moving forward to really maximize input and public participation. My last question is, what was laid out was a very aggressive timeline starting as early as next week. When can the public anticipate seeing that specific timeline, and in particular, kind of a meeting notice with subsequent materials for the meeting next week?
I think we can make that available, work with staff to make that available as soon as possible. I believe that your agenda for the meeting would be posted this week. That will definitely have the demographer's presentation in it. That will also have timeline information in it. And that, of course, has ideas for line drawing criteria and all that good stuff in it too. So that will be available for public consumption, posted on your website and out to wherever you distribute your agenda materials, I believe by the end of this week, and Kent can probably confirm that.
Yeah, and one of the things that we intend to do at that first meeting too is have Mr. Furchaw kind of do a refresh because it's been so long since that first public hearing. And we did set aside both of these at special meetings so that we will have dedicated time for that. And so we will have ample time to really hear from the community, to really hear from the board, hear from Mr. Furchaw, and work through all of that on both the 15th and the 29th, and then again on the 8th when a final decision is made. But yeah, I think we can get those posted immediately. And then as soon as his PowerPoint is done for, that'll usually go, I think, Friday, early Friday would be our hopes.
And of course, it will be in keeping with all of our public posting requirements, but I just wanted our individuals who joined us this evening to kind of have some clear expectations on what would take place next. And so as promised, I was going to do one more round robin for my colleagues. I am going to go in order. So now is one more opportunity to weigh in. Mr. Hernandez.
Madam President, I just, a lot on my mind. This past year, this topic has caused some comments and some, well, a lot of comments that are not so nice. But I think I beg our community to please read the background rationale of this agenda item I3. It's public knowledge, and it breaks it down in simple terms as to what this is all about. Please don't be disillusioned by all the other stuff that you hear. Just read this background, and it's simple, and you'll see that we're trying to do the right thing. Thank you.
Ms. Creason.
So I just have one question. I'm hearing that, you know, the agenda will be posted and the information will be out. I'm wondering, is it possible that we really uplift this one item and not leave it just at the agenda posting, but publicize it a bit more just to make sure people are getting it, especially because school's out now, you know, just do a little bit more uplifting of the item?
Yeah, we can use all the social media channels that we have to get that out.
Awesome.
You know, we can put it front and center on the website, special meetings. We can, you know, even we'll do everything we can to try and get as many community folks. And I would hope that maybe, and I know I'd heard previously that Mr. Furchaw and other districts had some good experience and ideas in terms of that engagement piece. So that can maybe even be part of it. And I see Michelle shaking her head yes. So that could even be kind of a conversation when he's here next week with him. And then as well as maybe hearing from the public if there are other ways that we could do this. It's one of the challenges that we know we have to face with is it will be times when not as many staff are working. We're going to be looking at getting people to facilitate. We'd like to have consistency there. Again, that's really why we talked about if we could record his last presentation on the 29th is again for that consistency so that everybody that shows up on the 1st and the 6th is getting that same message and then having an opportunity to speak prior to the board making a final decision on the 8th.
Okay.
So yeah, and I'll speak with Mr. Allen as well. We will do everything we can to get that out every way possibly.
Okay. And just a thought, more of a comment. When we are getting the valuable public input, I hope there's a way to understand, are we hearing from people in our district? Are we hearing, you know, who are we hearing from as we're getting the input to make sure we're really speaking to, you know, who's a parent, you know, who's a student, you know, I don't have any answers for that, but it's just a comment and a thought I had. Thank you.
Dr. McKibben.
Ms. Cannon, when you've been involved in a number of these kinds of things, when the maps are drawn, what is the average number, the normal number? How many maps is it been your experience that the demographer has drawn to try to give the community and the board choices and so forth? And what are the kinds of questions that are particularly appropriate for people to ask about those maps?
I think if I were to give you an average number of draft maps that are prepared, 3 is pretty darn common, and it's what we see in the districts in your area. So I think that's what you can expect is 3 maps. And just so you know, they will look pretty similar because all of the, statutory information as far as population is really what drives these. So they're going to look similar. They're just going to have slight differences where, one main thoroughfare might be in section 1 on one map and then another map that's in section 2. And as a result of that, the other side of section 2 had to be moved a little bit to keep the population equal. So you'll see there'll be some slight differences, but they're going to look pretty darn similar. And again, like I said before, it's when the demographer has missed the mark in some important way that they'll have to go back and prepare additional maps. Or if for whatever reason you all think after looking at the draft maps that it's not quite capturing what you wanted them, what wanted the demographer to capture, then he can prepare additional maps. I think as far as important things to consider in the draft maps, of course, all of your residents in your district will be looking to see where they live, whose district would they be in and who would be included. And so folks are normally looking at, is everyone in my neighborhood going to be part of the same district? Is everyone that went to, is right now in the attendance area for my kids' elementary and part of the same trustee area? If it's a city like Citrus Heights, those folks may say, we think we should all be in one area. Although just a caveat, and I'm obviously not a demographer, I don't know that would be possible, probably not just based on their population, but those are the kinds of questions and input I think that you can expect to get is people will look at drafts and have an idea of what they think it should look like. And then we'll start looking around them at the natural boundaries and the school attendance boundary areas and weighing in on whether they think the drafts look good or if somehow, something's been missed.
Thank you, Ms. Cannon. Doing one more quick check for any additional questions at this time? Seeing none, we appreciate the update.
Okay, thank you all. We'll see you later.
Thank you. Would my colleagues be okay with indulging in a 5-minute recess? We are going to, seeing no objections, we are going to do that. It is 9:04, so just in the interest of rounding, we will resume at 9:10. Thank you. We are in recess. Okay, we are back and in session. We are now at item I4, presentation of the 2021-2022 budget. Ms. Kane, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, President Vasquez, members of the board, Superintendent Kern, and Ms. Cunningham. Tonight, the superintendent is recommending that the board hold a public hearing and discuss the proposed 2021-22 budget, including staffing standards, the use of the education protection account funds, and the substantiation of excess reserves as presented by the administration. Now, on the next slide. On this slide, we want to thank you, the board, for your core commitments. These commitments listed here are the framework for the district's budget and collective bargaining. The next slide is our core messages. I'd like to highlight a few of these core messages, specifically bringing your attention to the second bullet point. Some of the core messages we are using is the Super COLA proposal of 5.07%. Also, on bullet point 4, the district will receive considerable one-time funds from state and federal sources to be spent during the next few years. Details of these funds will be described in upcoming slides for you. The last bullet point, number 5, or the bullet point 5, I'm sorry, a reminder again that these budget estimates do not include the costs of recent collective bargaining agreements. On slide 3, here's an overview that lists the things we'll be discussing tonight. The next slide. As a legal requirement, the board action is required for budget adoption and to approve the revisions to the current year budget. This will take place in 2 weeks at the June 22nd meeting. Slide 5. We also have a requirement to present the use of the Education Protection Account funds. These can be found on pages 241 and 242 in the budget book that was presented to you. Here is the summary of our one-time stimulus funds. There's a lot here. These are to be spent over a 3-year period. As you can see on the left column is the source of the funds: our learning loss mitigation, our elementary and secondary emergency relief ESSER 1, 2, 3 funds, and additional state stimulus funds for expanded learning opportunities. The next columns show how much the district is to receive, how much the district has spent as of now, and the balance remaining to be spent. I want to bring your attention to the total line at the bottom there to point out the district is receiving almost $241 million in one-time funds. The next slide provides a different perspective of these funds, of these one-time funds, compared to the district's current year operating budget. As you can see to the right, our district's current year operating budget of $374 million, and to the left side, the one-time stimulus funds, and how large this is compared to our current operating budget. The next slide, this is our district's current year's estimated actuals for all the district funds. As you can see to the left, we list all our funds. And as you can see, as you move to the right, you can see to the far right, our ending balances. For all the ending balances, we are showing positive for all funds. I do want to mention, that for our child development and cafeteria funds, we are showing a deficit. And we want to point out that their revenue depends on participation fees. We made contributions that have been to these programs to help support them this year, and want to show that they still will have positive ending balances. The next slide represents the unrestricted general fund from the adopted budget on the left back last June of 2020 to where we are now to the far right of our estimated actuals. And I want to bring your attention down to the blue line where it says surplus deficit and show that we are ending this year with a $7 million surplus. And I also want to bring attention to the one spot where we are showing, we've been pretty consistent since the Budget Act last September of showing a $7 million surplus to estimated actuals now, which is still a little over $7 million. Here we break out the unrestricted general fund into the supplemental and base piece. To the left columns are the adopted budget last June 2020 compared to the estimated actuals where we are today. You can still see that we are projecting a surplus of 7 million. We show a little bit of deficit in the supplemental, but that was more than offset by the surplus in the base. These are the planning factors that we are using for our 2021-22 projected budget. The state COLA of 5.07%, our unduplicated pupil count of 53.81%, and then also the other factors, our STRS and PERS rate increase, step and column advancements, and our medical insurance premium increases. This slide shows the other planning factors we use for our out years for 2021, 22, 23, and 23, 24. I want to point out that we are using the funded COLA as recommended from the Department of Finance. Again, this is the budget, projected budget of adoption for all funds. To the left is all the funds listed, and to the right, as you move across, are beginning balances, and then to the very right, our ending balance, where we're showing all positive ending balances by the end of next fiscal year. Here is our unrestricted general fund budget. Want to note that on the blue line, the surplus, we are projecting a $10.2 million surplus. Again, I want to remind you that this does not include the cost of the collective bargaining agreements that have been recently agreed to. Here we break out the unrestricted with the supplemental and the base. Again, we go down to the blue line, showing a little bit of deficit in the supplemental. Again, this is offset by the base surplus. I do want to point out that the district will not be receiving any concentration grant funding due to the district's unduplicated pupil count falling below 55% next year. Here are our multi-year projections for 2022 to 24. You can see the revenues are increasing, and looking at our surplus deficit line, we are showing surpluses in both years. Again, I have to remind you that this does not include the cost of the collective bargaining agreements that we have recently agreed to. Latest news. While we are still waiting and expecting to hear changes and updates from the governor and legislature leaders soon. One note is that the governor is proposing to retain over $2 billion in payment deferrals to schools. However, we are hearing a counterproposal from the legislature to use these funds to pay off all deferrals now. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Another proposal from the governor is to increase the concentration grant allocation. However, the counterproposal is to allow this allocation to be directed to all districts through the supplemental grant. If this happens, the district could receive an additional $5 million in their supplemental grant funding. So we'll have to wait and see. These are our next steps. We're going to continue to monitor local, state, national, and global economies. And as we know more, we're going to keep you informed of all the changes. I want to say special thanks to Kent Stevens for allowing me to come up here and present this budget to you, and also to Phil as well, and to the fiscal department. I know they put a lot of hard work, a lot of changes occurring all at once. So I really want to thank that staff for putting this together for you. Is there any questions at this time?
Thank you, Ms. Kane, for the presentation. I declare the topic of the 2021-2022 proposed budget a public hearing, and it is now open for public comment. Mr. Allen, are there any public comments on this item?
We've not had any comments submitted for this item. If you've joined us on Zoom and would like to offer a comment on this budget item, you can do so by clicking that raise hand button at the bottom of your screen, or *9 on your telephone keypad if you have dialed into the meeting tonight. And seeing no hands at this time, President Villescaz.
Okay, there being no comments, I declare the public hearing closed. At this time, I'll turn it to my colleagues for any comments or questions. Mr. Hernandez, Ms. Costa.
Ms. Kane, the Child Development Fund and Cafeteria Fund deficits, are those related to COVID?
Yes, they are, because they require on participation fees, and we couldn't have in person. So therefore there was not, the participation fees were way down.
Thank you.
Ms. Creason?
Just two quick questions. Next time, I assume the next time this comes to us, it will be revised to reflect the recent agreements, right?
If there's any revisions to it, yes.
Got it. And where are we in the way of percentages towards concentration dollars? I know we're not there, but where are we? I didn't catch that.
I can speak to that. So, you know, last year we had gone, I should say 1920, yes, 1920. At the start of that year, we had gone almost to around 56%. And then this last year, just such a challenge to get those meal applications back. I think we dipped down to like 53%. It is a 3-year average. So what we truly believe will happen is it's unlikely we'll get back over 55% next year. So for 21, 22, we'll probably be just under that. And then we're really hopeful the year after that, that we'll bounce back and fall into that. And the interesting thing is that'll be 22, 23, but having that low number from 2021, that third year after that, we could see a fairly significant bump in that percentage, because all 3 of those years would have been over 55% then. So likely still at least one more year where we're not considered concentration again.
Is there any rumblings within the powers that be to consider, you know, the lack of turning in the forms due to COVID? No. Yeah. All right.
We pushed really hard on that with local legislators. We pushed with, you know, with all of our different advocacy groups and lobbyists, and there was no appetite for making any changes. And the governor's proposal actually puts more money into that account. And that's, we prefer the legislator's proposal on that.
Thank you.
Dr. McKibben.
On slide 11, you mentioned STRS and PERS. In previous years, we've been kind of hard pressed by the amount of the increases and that being imposed more on districts. It appears that we still have those increases, but it doesn't seem to have the impact that it has had in the past. Am I reading that wrong or just not understanding it?
Well, these increases are similar to what we've seen over the last few years. These percentage increases in dollar amounts are pretty similar to what we've been seeing. We expect the legislators to propose to use some one-time money to help us with these rates over the next couple of years. You might remember that Governor Brown and also Governor Newsom have a few times over the last several years used some one-time money to provide some temporary relief to these rates. But I'll remind you that the STRS rate is going to eventually top out at about 18%. You can see that it's projected to go to 17 almost. And the PERS rate is supposed to go all the way up to 27 or 28% eventually.
So we're not out of the woods yet on that.
I wish I could say we were, but you're correct.
My second one relates to Governor Newsom's proposal related to a transitional kindergarten. This may be one more for Frank than it is. Do we have enough space to, if indeed we go to a full transitional kindergarten?
No, not even close.
Right, I agree. I think that Frank and I have actually gone downtown, and Frank has testified to this topic either I think 2 sessions ago. And I think brought to the attention of some in the legislature and some of their staff that this is easier said than done. It might sound great on paper, but they rarely consider the space needs when they talk about, full-time kindergarten or full-time TK. Expanding classrooms is not cheap, nor are we able to do it quickly. And so I think that's a conversation that still needs to be had downtown as well. It's a wonderful goal, but it's not too practical to do very quickly for most school districts, including ours.
We have a similar challenge even with schools that want to do full day kinder, because when you have partial day kinder, you can share classes. As soon as you go full day, you got to have dedicated classrooms. So there are some schools and communities that would love to do full day kinder, and they don't have the space to do that. So to think about the TK, it's a challenge that we've been speaking about at the state level for years and years.
And they do throw some money at that, but it's really very, very little money when you look at it statewide. I mean, we would get like enough for 1 or 2 classrooms. Our theoretical share would be enough for 1 or 2 classrooms. So not nearly enough.
Thank you for the presentation. And I think just to kind of continue on the thread that you were just on, Dr. McKibben, on the transitional kindergarten, I can certainly understand the logistical challenge that might present, but we've overcome a lot of crazy things that we never thought we would over the last year. So I mean, I'm not out searching for challenges, but if we had to tackle that one, I hope we could get creative. So we'll see how that one plays out. The only other thing that I kind of wanted to point out was on slide 12, particularly on the medical insurance increases. I was actually surprised for probably the first time since I've sat here to see that it was actually pretty low at 4%. I think in prior years and in prior presentations, we've seen projected increases on the medical side in more of the double digits. And I know there's still a question of what role ultimately kind of COVID will play in out years. And so I just am curious if anybody had any input on that 4% number, because for the first time ever, I thought it was a little low.
There is a little bit of lag with these rates, and so that 4% number is actually a pretty certain number. We get those numbers from our medical providers, Kaiser Permanente and Western Health. So that is a pretty certain number, and the explanation behind that is there's a lot of elective medical procedures that folks did not participate in over the last 12 to 18 months, and even still, there's a lot of delayed procedures, unfortunately, in some instances. So that's why our claims are down and our usage is down. So again, that is a pretty firm number based on quotes we have gotten from our medical providers. They also provide the quotes in the out years, and that's why we're using the 7.5. We have not had a double-digit increase in medical rates for several years. I think it was 4, 5, 6 years ago where we had a rate increase of about 11%. But most of the time, our rate increases have been in the 4 to 8% range since I've been here.
And that matches my memory as well. Typically what was adopted was closer to 4 to 8, but I know in years past and projected, it's always a little bit higher. And of course, once we get closer to those out years, we have a more accurate actual, but it always seemed in the out years that they were projected a little bit higher. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the out years with the points that you just raised, and hopefully with our return to quote unquote normal, our employees will be seeking the quality healthcare that they deserve.
Yeah, well, and I agree, and we have been told that we might want to brace for some, for lack of a better term, pent-up demand for health services, some things that maybe have been postponed. So we might see a little bit of a spike in 22, 23, or even beyond. So that, again, we get those figures and estimates from our consultants who work with us and directly from our health providers.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the presentation. Seeing no further comments or questions at this time, this was a discussion item and it will return for action at our June 22nd meeting. Thank you. We are now at item I5, the Fair Oaks Recreation and Park District proposed use and renovation of fields at La Vista. Mr. Camarda.
Good evening, President Villasquez, members of the board, Superintendent Kern, and Ms. Cunningham. Tonight, we have the Fair Oaks Recreation and Park District here. We have a couple folks on Zoom tonight listening to the presentation, and we have a couple folks here tonight I'd like to introduce you to. We have Mr. Raymond James Irwin, the board vice president on Zoom. We have Ms. Katie Koss, who is the recreation superintendent. We have Mr. Ralph Carhart here tonight, board director. And we have the district administrator, Mr. Mike Aho, is going to present to the board tonight and have a discussion about a proposal to renovate the La Vista fields for girls softball. Mr. Aho and his team, along with my team, have been discussing a partnership to improve the fields at La Vista. We've always been good partners with Fair Oaks Parks and Rec, and we have provided opportunities for girls softball fields that they just have been inadequate. We think this is a good proposal. Mr. Aho and his team approached us with this proposal to invest in those facilities. They have a couple goals in mind very quickly. They want to improve service to their community. They want to designate the La Vista fields exclusively for girls softball for them to have priority use. They want to serve more female athletes in comparable facilities. We believe La Vista is a great location for that, and it has the type of amenities to provide quality facilities for some of our female softball athletes. It also is a good piece of property to provide enhancements for parking, restrooms, snack bars, playgrounds, as their budgets will permit. Mr. Aho and his team have presented this item to the Facilities Committee on April 6th. They got a unanimous thumbs up to move it to the board to hear the discussion. After Mr. Aho's presentation, we'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have. I think the next step in this process would be to have both public agencies negotiate a long-term lease that's in the best interest of both agencies. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Aho to go ahead and do a very quick presentation for the board tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for having us here today. I do appreciate this opportunity to be able to share these types of things. And it has been a pleasure working with the staff from San Juan Unified School District, and I just want to give them kudos for that. We do have a fun team here on this project, and as Frank mentioned, and you've seen those members are right there, and I will move on from that. Just a quick background. In November of 2018, the voters approved the first ever Parks and Recreation General Obligation Bond in Fair Oaks with a 68.9% approval rating. It's a $26.9 million project. There are three major project areas there: to renovate and improve the Village Plaza Veterans Memorial Amphitheater, which is an $18.8 million project that's ongoing right now. Then number two, to increase parking at Phoenix Park and construction of 2 girls softball fields. And then construction development of a community recreation center. So 3 major projects, and we'll be talking about the girls softball field as one of the major projects. There we go. Okay. What you're seeing there highlighted in orange is the proposed area at Phoenix Park for the girls softball field initially. You can see the parking areas around that. They're very limited, and we have other softball, baseball, soccer things going on. At the same time as softball, the area is completely impacted by parking and usage. So the benefits of Phoenix Park versus La Vista Park. One, Phoenix Park is a very busy park, as I mentioned. Parking is at a premium. Girls softball adds to that congestion. And so we're already spilling over extensively into the neighborhood and dealing with, obviously, neighbors that don't enjoy having all that traffic in front of their house, specifically on weekends and evenings. We also free up that vacant land for additional parking that could be developed there in Phoenix, as well as other recreational opportunities, whether it be playgrounds or benches, seating, things like that. La Vista gives us the opportunity to improve the services for all of Fair Oaks, and I'll show that here in a second. And then it also gives us a designated home for girls softball, which I think is absolutely critical. It's not a shared facility. It is a designated home for our female athletes. And it provides a quality amenity for those female athletes. It's not an afterthought. This is a high quality facility for female athletes. There's enough room at La Vista for the parking, bathrooms, snack bar, playground, and potentially more, depending on the budget. And right there, you'll see the outline for the fields. And that is what the area around La Vista that we're talking about. So the concept development plan for this is that we would put in 3 girls softball fields if the budget allows, definitely 2, and we would try to put 3 in. We would also hopefully put some playground equipment, benches, tables. We definitely have to have the parking in place, and the restrooms have to be renovated, and potentially the snack bar. The park would be available for public use when not reserved for girls softball and for other users besides girls softball, but the girls, again, the women have priority over that. And then there's the concept plan that we have for that facility, showing three fields and 145 standard parking spots with 6 ADA stalls. Obviously, as we get more refined in the design, these could change. So the San Juan Unified School District benefits for leasing to us would be the cost savings of mowing, irrigating, and maintaining the fields. It relinquishes the San Juan Unified School District from having to invest in land that needs renovation. Those fields do need renovation. And then many of the students from San Juan will have an opportunity to play on high quality fields built on their property. So we're sharing those with our publics. The San Juan Unified School District will broaden their offering and improve their offerings for girls sports with these fields. And then San Juan Unified will aid us, the park department, in reaching an underserved geographical area for the youth sports. And if you look at that picture right there, if you'll see the gray area, that's Village Plaza Park in the middle of Fair Oaks on the south end. On the east end is Phoenix Park, which has ball fields and everything. You've already talked about that. The north end is Fair Oaks Park, which has ball fields. and a large recreational area. And then if we are able to lease La Vista, it gives us that west end. So geographically, we really do serve all four quadrants of our community with this project. The proposed lease, we're proposing to invest anywhere between $3 and $4 million right now. And then that we would want a long-term lease that protects that investment, a minimum of 25 years, hopefully a longer, much longer lease, multiple renewals if needed, or just a straight up like a 99-year lease. And then we'd love the option to be able to purchase the land worked into that agreement if possible, if that land does become available for sale, and even potentially the buildings if they do become available. It's not critical to the lease, but it is something that we want to address throughout this process. And the details, as Frank had mentioned, would be worked out with staff, legal, and then brought back to the boards. And our responsibilities, all the costs to develop the property, all the maintenance of that property, and all of the water and all the other type of services like that. And with that, I would like to offer up an opportunity potential for Vice Chair Irwin, if he was able to say something. I'm not sure how this process works, but he should be on Zoom.
Give us just one moment.
Okay. And I don't know if Director Carhart wanted to, while we're waiting.
I don't have much to say, but I would say we're serving the same community of kids in this with both of our districts. And so I think this would be a great enhancement for the community. And I encourage the partnership.
Good evening. This is Vice Chair Irwin. Can everybody hear me?
We can.
Wonderful. If I may, I just want to add on to what our district administrator has stated. It's been such a pleasure for us to bring this opportunity to the San Juan Unified School District. And, you know, in our research, I really believe that this is something that will not only benefit the Fair Oaks Park District, but truly the school district that serves our community. You know, we do have very much the same community, and providing such high quality girls softball fields that meet Title IX, I think is so important for our communities and for our districts, and something that will truly benefit both of our places. And, you know, something that I think is very important to note is that we are validating something of up to $4 million right now. Whereas oftentimes you'll hear presentations where they are discussing the possibility of providing those funds. Whereas for us, our district right this moment is saying that we can bring to the table this moment $3 to $4 million, which I do think makes such a significant difference. And it allows, again, for so much maintenance, so much work that would have to be done by your district as well, to be taken over by ours, and to really, again, as my co-director Carhart mentioned, serve a joint use. So it's something that I am very much in favor. We as a board are very much in favor, and think that at the end of the day, this will be something that will benefit our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you very much for the presentation. First, we're going to see if there's any public comments on this item, and then I'll turn it to my colleagues. Mr. Allen, are there any public comments on this item?
We've had no comments submitted for this item, and giving just one moment to see if anybody would like to raise their hand. Seeing no raised hands at this time, President Vázquez.
Thank you. At this point, I'll turn it over to my colleagues for questions and comments, and we'll begin with Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you. First, a quick question and then a comment. The softball fields, are they grass? Are they artificial? What is the content?
At this point in time, we are proposing grass or turf fields, yes.
Okay. And my comment is that I am a liaison for the board to our facilities and comment. And it was, Mr. Cremata said it was a unanimous, but it was a very, very exciting support of this project. So I want my colleagues to know that from our facilities committee. And I personally love the idea. I love watching girls softball right now. The NCAA is going on, and to see, you know, University of Washington's second baseman from Sacramento. I did a graduation with graduation with Mr. Peter Sigbisky. His daughter played at UCLA, right? UCLA, Ken? So I love the idea. I can't wait. And I support this 100%.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Ms. Costa?
I think this is a wonderful idea for our community, for the young people in the community, and I thank you for bringing it forward. It's good to.
Ms. Creason?
It's really exciting, and thank you for answering the question you knew I was going to ask. I appreciate that. Just a couple more questions. I'm wondering, has La Vista leadership been engaged in this conversation?
We briefly, I have not had a very in-depth conversation with Mr. Lofton. I have not. Most of the use of La Vista is in the buildings, very little use on the fields. But it is a good reminder for me, Ms. Greason, that I will engage fully with Mr. Lofton on the project prior to it moving forward.
I'd love that. And I'm just thinking about our kids that are over there, and they have very unique needs. And that's a lot of change. And so I would want to make sure that they're okay, that there is a plan to support them and that they're good with it. Just get their feedback. That would be awesome. So the underlined all caps buildings on slide 11, I have to ask, so what's in the cards there?
Oh, well, we actually would be very interested in the buildings as a potential community type of center. As you saw the third bullet point on the earlier slides that we talked about the 3 parts for the bond measure. One of them was a community center. And we have as staff looked at that and said, wow, wouldn't it be great if that was an opportunity that could present itself?
I appreciate that. So we have kids there.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
not
going to happen.
I think, well, and I think the reality is when we look at that, in the current situation, we wouldn't have other space to move those. But let's say 10, 15 years from now, if the district would continue to decline in enrollment and we had to close a couple of other schools, you potentially could move that facility to a more central location in the district. And then that could be a possibility. But as of right now, no, we're utilizing that.
Okay, we're not closing down the center without a place to put our kids.
No.
I had to ask. I mean, it's all caps and underlined. Okay.
No, it's Ms. Creason, it's a wish
We really
list,
want
but
those
it is not at the table at this time, like Superintendent Kern said.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I had one more question. Oh, just access. So if I'm understanding correctly, the deal would be you make this wonderful investment for a very long-term lease. What would that mean in the way of our access to the field in that time? Like, do we just relinquish all access or we have to go through you? What does that look like?
We do have a joint use agreement with the San Juan Unified School District, and this facility would probably fall under that. There may be some extra opportunities for the school district. For an example, if you didn't have to utilize those fields for the girls softball or the middle school, high school level, then that probably would be something we'd address through a joint use amendment. But we would definitely fall under the joint use agreement.
Thank you.
Dr. McKibben.
Just before this meeting, I went over and walked the property as Mr. Carhart had suggested to me that I do some time ago, and I finally got around to it today. And I noticed that just one of the diamonds was being used, and that was the one nearest to Bannister and so forth. And it did have the girls softball circle and markings and so forth. Right behind that on the right was a yellow building that looked like it. What would happen that looks a bit like a jail, or because it's really closed in and looks like it hasn't been used for a while too. If this lease agreement is exercised, what would happen to that building?
Well, if I remember the building you're talking about, we're hoping to be able to again have a restroom facility there, and that.
Yeah, if you look at your slide number 8, it is right at the top, just below the.
Next one.
Yeah, you just passed it. Yeah, the building that looks like it's white in that drawing.
The larger one there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I believe is an inoperable restroom. So.
It is because it looked like it had restroom facilities. It looked like it had been used as a concession at one point. But that building would be.
Yeah, it may come down, but we still need the restroom. So obviously the support structure around that would be something that we'd have to try and utilize to continue to have a restroom facility out there.
Okay. My question was similar to Ms. Creason's in terms of for the young people that are at La Vista, what would they use for their recreational facilities if that scheme were used? It looks like, and those are fairly active, in some cases, large people that need some recreational facilities. It seems like we're taking something away from them that might be valuable.
Right. Yeah. As mentioned, I'm hoping that we have the design capacity to be able to put that play facility or that space in for general use, whether it be for the neighbors or whether it be the school itself. And it is something we can address through the design process and the community outreach as we go forward. We may or may not be able to put 3 fields in financially. We definitely have to put 2 in, but we would definitely be able to utilize the space as best as possible and try and service the needs for the community and the school.
I think the piece of it though is while the students are in session, those fields are still there for their use. Exactly. Good example, when I was at Carnegie Middle School, the soccer fields at Carnegie are maintained by the soccer club over there. Well, we use those fields every single day. They would do a lot of maintenance, fertilization, mowing them. I mean, there was replacing sprinkler heads. So it's a similar type. While they're in school, those fields are available for use.
Yeah, we have similar agreements as well. Gold River Park. I mean, there's a bunch of joint use agreements that when school's in session, students will use those fields, and then on nights and weekends, that's when the park districts take over those fields and use them.
My next question relates to, I was looking at the long-term lease and the buyback notions and that sort of thing that were there. Do we have is this a common kind of thing, or is there a precedent for the buyback notions, and in terms of that we would have to pay for the facilities and so forth? What is our common practice on that?
It's pretty common. I don't think we still have to negotiate the terms of the agreement as far as what a buyback looks like. We don't intend as a district at this point, unless the board has a different idea later on. We'd like to keep these fields intact for the Fair Oaks Recreation Park District. We're going to have to do some negotiating to figure out what lease agreement looks like that is in the best interest of both entities. Those lease agreements will be brought forward to the committee to vet, to look at that. We have had some discussions on what a buyback looks like. I'd say we're a little far apart on what that looks like. But I think if we have some good negotiation and a good strategy, I think it'll be in the best interest of both parties to assist in this project and to allow this to continue for quite some time if the board permits the lease to go forward.
It doesn't look like a property that could have better use than it is right now from the little walk that I did on that sort of thing. And it seems to make sense, but I do agree that there's probably some negotiations that need to get done on this.
Absolutely. The committee will see that, and the board will get feedback from the committee, as well as bringing that lease agreement to the board for a discussion and then action at some time. I'd say probably after August or September of this year.
So just in terms of process, I'll just remind my colleagues, it's a discussion item. So this is the first step in an ongoing partnership that I'm very excited about, but it will return back to us at a later date for further discussion and action and on a lease agreement when available. I just want to say I'm really excited about this partnership. Thank you so much for being willing partners. I hope that it is both, I have every reason to anticipate that it is successful and a good example for us to perhaps follow with in terms of partnerships and cooperation with our other parks districts. throughout the district. So I look forward to, in a few months, pointing to this as a shining example of success of cooperation between our mutual districts and the communities that we serve. I will just put a little bit more of an emphasis. I think you heard it from my colleagues as well. As you get further along in the planning, request that you take the kind of consideration of the community that's there, the educational community, and even consideration of their needs when building some of the fields would be really tremendous and appreciated. And so I recognize that it's an early step in the process. I want to thank you both and your board as well. And thank you, Mr. James Irwin, for joining us and sticking around this late. Sure. I'll finish up really quick and then I'll go around. No, that's okay. So I want to say thank you. Look forward to seeing how this evolves. And we will likely see this item back at some point in the future and relatively soon. Ms. Creason has one more thing she'd like to add. So I will let her do so now.
I'll be quick. I'm just hoping the next time that it comes back that maybe even Sunny could be a part of the conversation, or I'm just hoping that we could actually see, I'm really concerned about the kids, and just that's a lot going on around them, so that as we move this forward, it moves forward with a plan to support them through the process that we can consider too.
Fair enough, Ms. Creason. I think that we'll do a very good job at working with Sunny, working with the students. I'll have Mr. Aho come and do a presentation for them and, kind of walk them through the design process so they feel comfortable with the changes that are going to go on there.
Awesome.
So,
thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to do a quick check. Any further comments? This is really exciting. Thank you so much. And we look forward to to having this evolve. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for your positive reception of our proposal, and good night.
Good night. So sorry to to wrap up a little bit quickly there, but thank you as well for sticking around. With that, I'm going to just do a quick check, make sure we're all good. Okay, cool. We are now at item I6, adopting school facilities fees and notice of exemption. Mr. Camarda.
Thank you, Madam President Viasquez, board members, Superintendent Kern, Ms. Cunningham. Tonight, the board is being asked to adopt language changes to our developer fee justification study. In this case, the board has to adopt the justification study in its entirety, including the fees. And I just want to make it a point that the current fee structure will remain the same. It will not change at this time. If the board recollects, we bring these increases to the board every 2 years. They go through our committee. Those are adjusted for inflation, and then when we bring those to the board for approval, the language changes in the justification study allow us to evaluate specific impacts of replacement and reconstruction projects that may be changing use from commercial to residential, residential to commercial, and so on. These specific projects have a student generation factor, and we want to make sure that we ensure that we are in a position to levy the correct impact fees based on the type of construction or reconstruction that is occurring within our respective boundaries. So tonight, the superintendent is recommending that the board call a public hearing, approve resolution number 3055, declaring the adoption of the 2020 developer fee justification study to aid in the funding for the construction or reconstruction of school facilities necessitated by the student population increases resulting from that development. I'm here to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you, Mr. Camarda. I declare the topic of adopting school facility fees and notice of exemption a public hearing, and is now open for public comment. Mr. Allen, are there any public comments on this item?
We've had no comments submitted for this item, nor do we have any hands raised at this time.
Okay. Want to just confirm that there have been no raised hands?
That is correct.
Okay. There being no comments, I declare the public hearing closed. Do any of my colleagues have questions or comments on this item? Okay. Seeing none. Oh, Dr. McKibben. It is an action item.
I mean, your microphone, sorry.
All right, well,
I thought you were just
jumping
saying,
ahead.
giving my name.
Okay. I'll call for a motion real quick and then I'll have you down as a second.
Okay.
Okay. This is an action item. Is there a motion to adopt resolution number 3055 declaring the adoption of the 2020 developer fee justification study to aid in the funding for construction or reconstruction of school facilities necessitated by student population increases resulting from development?
So moved.
It's been moved by Dr. McKibben. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Ms. Creason. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. That was unanimous. We are at item I7, COVID
Thank you, Board.
update. Thank you, Mr. Camarda. No worries. We're at item I7, COVID-19 update. Superintendent Kern.
Thank you, President Villescaz and members of the board. Really not much to update this week. We're still looking to the 15th with anticipation, waiting to see. Just today, we were looking at the guidance from Cal OSHA, as I said earlier, and looking how that will affect workplaces. And that's different than how it might affect schools. So we'll be watching that. A number of us will continue to have meetings this week, and we're hoping that we get clarification. The governor has said that he may extend some of his executive powers or emergency powers during this time. So we will watch, and we will continue to update both the community and the board with any changes that we hear about. And as mentioned earlier, it is our intent with meetings here that we will be back in person at the special meeting on the 15th and those going forward. So we're looking forward to actually having people back in person here. So.
Thank you for the update. Mr. Allen, do we have any public comments on this item?
We have not had any comments submitted, and if you've joined us, now would be the time to click that raise hand button if you'd like to offer a comment on this item. And seeing no raised hands at this time, President Villescaz.
Thank you. Do any of my colleagues have questions or comments? Seeing none. I'm so sorry. Ms. Creason, I got distracted by the.
It's just quick. So no word on the distance learning legislation or feelings or anything?
No, I had a NorCal Soups meeting this past Friday with superintendents from throughout the region, probably 30 or 40 of us on that, and there's been no change. We're really waiting for the trailer language, but we're all in a similar situation. I think the creative, innovative solutions are not looking very likely. The independent study piece that we previously have had, yeah, that's probably likely. So homeschool, independent study, beyond that, we'll have to wait and see. But right now I'd say it's not likely.
Thank you.
Doing another quick review. Okay, seeing no further questions or comments, thank you for the update. We are now at item I8, San Juan Supervisors Association Proposal for Successor Contract 2021-2022. Mr. Oropalo.
Good evening, President Villescaz, board members, Superintendent Kern, Ms. Cunningham, here to present to present the San Juan Supervisors Association proposal for 21-22 reopeners. Proposal was presented for the board for discussion on the 25th. It is an action item, and I'm here to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. As noted, this item was presented to the last board meeting and tonight is open for public comment.
Excuse me, public comment.
Mr. Allen, do we have any public comments on this item?
We have not had any comments submitted for this item, and we do not have any hands raised. And just a reminder that raise hand button is at the bottom of your screen on a mobile device or desktop client, and *9 if you've called into the meeting tonight. Seeing no raised hands, President Villescaz.
Okay, do any of my colleagues have questions or comments? I just want to clarify, it's my understanding this is a presentation for a successor contract.
Correct, it is not
So
an
it's
action
not
item.
an action item at this time.
Sorry.
Glad we're on the same page, no worries. There being no further comments, that concludes the item. We are at item I9, the district's proposal with the San Juan Supervisors Association for successor contract 2021-2022. Mr. Oropalo.
Thank you, President Villescaz. I'm here to present the superintendent's recommendation that the district adopt the bargaining interest with the San Juan Supervisors Association for 21-22 contract reopeners. The district interests were presented for the board for discussion on the 25th, and this one is an action item.
Yes. Yes, as it's the district's bargaining proposal, this will be an action item as noted. Mr. Allen, do we have any public comments on this item?
We have no submitted comments, nor do we have any hands raised at this time.
Okay. Seeing none, I'm assuming at this time, Mr. Allen?
Correct.
Do any board members have questions or comments? This item was presented at the last board meeting and tonight is an action item. Is there a motion to adopt the bargaining interests of the Board of Education for negotiations with the San Juan Supervisors Association for 2021-2022? It's been moved by Mr. Hernandez. Is there a second? Seconded by Dr. McKibben. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye, that was unanimous. We are at item I-10, Teamsters Union Local Number 150, Proposal for Successor Contract 2021-2022. Mr. Oropalo.
Thank you. I'm here to present the Teamsters Union Local 150 proposal for 21-22 reopeners, excuse me. The proposal was presented for discussion on the 25th, and I can answer any questions at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, do we have any public comments on this item?
We've had no comments submitted for this item. If you would like to offer one and have joined us on Zoom, that raise hand button at the bottom of your screen or *9 on your telephone keypad if you've dialed in. And see no raised hands at this time, President Villescaz.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Do any board members have questions or comments on this item? Okay. There being no comments at this time, that concludes the item. We are at item I-11, the district's proposal with Teamsters Union Local Number 150 for successor contract 2021-2022. Mr. Oropalo.
Thank you, President Villescaz. Here to present the superintendent's recommendation to adopt the district's bargain interest with the Teamsters Local 150 for 21-22 contract reopeners. The district's interests were presented for discussion on the 25th of May, and so this is an action item.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, do we have any public comments on this item?
No submitted comments on this item. And if you'd like to offer a comment, now is your chance. See no raised hands at this time, President Villescaz.
Do any of my colleagues have comments or questions at this time? Seeing none, is there a motion to adopt the bargaining interests of the Board of Education for negotiations with the Teamsters Union Local Number 150 for 2021-2022? It's been moved by Ms. Costa and seconded by Ms. Creason. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye, that was unanimous. We are at item I-12, implementation of agreements with CSEA, SJPEC, supervisors and Teamsters in response to returning to in-person learning 4 days per week. Mr. Oropalo.
Thank you, President Villescaz. I'm here tonight to present the superintendent's recommendation to approve the implementation of the side letters of agreement with the San Juan Teachers Association, California School Employees Association, Chapter 127, San Juan Professional Education Coalition, Teamsters Local 150, and the San Juan Supervisors Association. And this is an action item.
Mr. Allen, do we have any public comments on this item?
We have no submitted comments and we have no raised hands at this time.
Do any board members have questions or comments? And actually, I jumped in there a little quickly. Mr. Allen, just want to confirm there's no raised hands.
That is correct.
Okay. And then Mr. Oropalo, I just want to confirm on the timing of this. This is not related to next fall. This is related to this spring.
That is correct.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure everyone's on the same page there. This item was discussed at the last board meeting and tonight is an action item. Is there a motion to approve the implementation of agreements with CSEA, SJPEC supervisors and Teamsters, which includes additional paid days during the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year in response to returning to in-person learning for 4 days a week? Been moved by Ms. Costa and seconded by Dr. McKibben. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye, that was unanimous. We are at item I-13, implementation of agreements with SJAA, Cabinet, Confidential, and Unrepresented in response to returning to in-person learning 4 days per week. Mr. Oropalo.
Thank you, President Villescaz. I'm here tonight to present superintendent's recommendation to approve the implementation of agreements with the San Juan Administrators Association, Cabinet, Confidential, and Unrepresented Groups. Again, this is an action item and I can answer any questions if you have them at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, do we have any public comments on this item?
We've had no submitted comments for this item, and giving just a moment to see if anybody would like to raise their hand to offer a comment. Seeing no raised hands at this time, President Villescaz.
Do any board members have questions or comments at this time? Just offering the same clarification that this is related to this spring and not next fall.
Yes.
This item was discussed at the last board meeting and tonight is an action item. Is there a motion to approve the implementation of agreements with SJAA, Cabinet, Confidential, and Unrepresented Groups, which includes additional paid days during the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year in response to returning to in-person learning 4 days a week? It's been moved by Ms. Creason. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Costa. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. That was unanimous. We are at item I-14, tentative agreement with the San Juan Teachers Association. Mr. Oropalo.
Thank you, President Villescaz. I'm here tonight to present the tentative agreement between the San Juan Teachers Association and the San Juan Unified School District. This agreement was ratified by 96.8% of the voting of the SJTA members and so supported by the superintendent and his cabinet. And I can answer any questions at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, do we have any public comments on this item?
We've had no comments submitted for this item, and pausing one moment to give those in attendance the opportunity to raise their hand if they would like to offer a comment at this time. Seeing no raised hands at this time, President Villescaz.
Do any of my colleagues have comments or questions on this item? Okay, seeing and hearing none, this will return to us for action on June 22nd. We are at item I-15, salary schedule adjustments and one-time off-schedule payment for SJAA, Cabinet, Confidential, and Unrepresented Groups. Mr. Oropalo.
Thank you, President Villescaz. I'm here tonight to present the salary schedule adjustments for the San Juan Administrators Association, Cabinet, Confidential, and Unrepresented units. And I can answer any questions at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, do we have any public comments on this item?
We've had no comments submitted, and pausing for one moment for those who are in attendance to see if they would like to offer a comment by clicking that raise hand button. And seeing no raised hands at this time, President Villescaz.
Thank you. Do any board members have questions or comments? Ms. Creason.
I did get a question from a community member asking if the board was giving themselves a bonus with this item. Can you confirm that this does not include us?
This does not include a bonus for the board.
Thank you.
Appreciate the clarification. This was a discussion item and it will return for action on June 22nd. That we are at item J, board reports. Are there any board reports? Mr. Hernandez.
Presided over graduations, but I just want to thank the district and the staff that made it possible for the graduation at Laurel Ruff, which is a school for special needs. And they had 24 graduates, but for them to see the big production that was at all the other high schools that you all were there to have them, it was very special. And I just want you guys to know that they appreciated that very much. And, although it was for 24, it was very well deserved. That's all. Thank you.
Ms. Costa.
I would like to echo that same thanks to staff. Talking to parents after the graduations by phone, staff members at the graduation, and just seeing the joy on the kids' faces. I know it was a cost to do that at each of the graduations, and it really made a difference. They were very special and very much appreciated by everybody. And then I'd also like to remember Vanessa Libby. She was a former Teacher of the Year and Sierra Oaks teacher who passed away and who is greatly missed by the San Juan teaching community and especially Sierra Oaks and the students at Sierra Oaks.
Ms. Creason.
Just quickly, just so excited to participate in graduations again. It's really been wonderful to be around people and see how happy the kids have been. I have to just share, I got to do La Vista Center's graduation, and it was incredibly special too. It's a small group of young folks that work really hard, that have gone through a whole lot, and to be there with their families and it just really was something very, very special. And all of them were very special. And I want to just suggest that we adjourn in Ms. Libby's honor this evening. And also want to say I was really, I guess I want to apologize. I didn't know that there was a vigil for her or an event for her, and I absolutely would have been there if I had known. And that is not a criticism to anyone, but just to recognize it wasn't a lack of care. And my heart is with her family and the Sierra Oaks community.
Dr. McKibben.
Yeah, it was great seeing the live graduations and so forth. And I want to thank all those people that did an enormous amount of work matching the graduates to their parents, and the efficiency and effectiveness of it was truly impressive. And the number of parents that came up afterwards and said thank you and so forth. And they somehow, for some reason, they didn't congratulate me on my speech. They didn't like my ties, but indeed, it was very special to have live graduations this year. And thanks to everybody that did that.
I also just I know that the graduations did not come together by themselves. A lot of work went into them, but it really was a joy. Particularly, I think most of our graduations happened on their campuses, and I know that kind of gave a little bit of a unique aspect to each of them. So it was a lot of fun, and it was a lovely season. Glad we could make it happen in person. Glad we made it to the last day of the school year. Just want to acknowledge that. And I don't think that there's any objection, but I definitely would like to adjourn in the memory of Miss Vanessa Leiby. But first, we still have some items to wrap up. We are now at item K, future agenda items. Are there any future agenda items? Okay. We are then at item L, visitor comments. Mr. Allen, are there any visitor comments?
We have not had any final comments submitted, and if you've joined us on Zoom, now would be your opportunity to offer a final comment for any items that were not on tonight's agenda. To do so, please click that raise hand button found at the bottom of your screen on your desktop Zoom client or your mobile device, or by pressing *9 on your telephone keypad if you've dialed into the meeting tonight. And we do have one hand raised at this time, President Villescaz.
Okay, I'd like to remind the public that comments are limited to 2 minutes. And under the Brown Act, the board is not allowed to comment on items that are not on the agenda, so we're not ignoring your comments. We just can't respond to any individual comments. The superintendent can refer items to staff, who will follow up with you. The 2-minute clock there will count down your time on the screen, and please begin when you are ready.
Thank you. Our first comment is from Amber B. When you're ready.
Hi, thank you. I wanted to loop back to the comment I wanted to make earlier with regards to the incident that has occurred at Rio Americana High School recently. From my understanding, the teacher who displayed the Nazi flag was also a teacher at Mira Loma High School for some time, and I have some serious concerns about Principal Ginther. He was the principal at Rio Americana for at least 12 years, I think is what I saw, and over that period of time, there were several incidents of hate and racism that occurred, and so my concern is that I also understand that he has been promoted to the Director of Enrollment and Student Services. And I think more parents definitely need to know about this. It's completely unacceptable and shameful. As we mentioned in Lcap last week, performative sort of focus groups where we're spinning our wheels, trying to kind of talk about equity in a way that is actually applicable. But there's nothing that really happens. When something like this happens, then we all get together and we talk about what we should do. And certainly the answer is not to promote a principal who has fostered a culture of racism to a higher role where that could essentially trickle down into a number of other areas that impact the students within our district. I'm a little bit disappointed. I shared an Lcap last week. I was super excited to join and like, woo, I can like raise my voice, but it's really disheartening to know that a promotion like this has gone under, right under the noses of parents and has been accepted by the board. So I just really wanted to name that. I condone Principal Ginther's promotion.
And thank you for your comment. And President Villescaz, that was the only comment we have at this time.
Okay, we do not need to return to closed session at this time, so we are adjourned.
The board will hold a special meeting on June 15th with an expected start time of 6:30 p.m. The meeting will be held in person in the boardroom at the district office located at 3738 Walnut Avenue in Carmichael. The meeting is also expected to be available online via YouTube. The next regular meeting of the board will be held Tuesday, June 22nd, with open public session starting at 6:30 p.m. Thank you for joining us tonight. Please enjoy the rest of your evening.